retarded. Auto believers of the television programming. 33 with a double E, yeah. WWWWF. Now you're out of breath. It's the mask of the beast, mask of the beast, mask of the beast, mask of the beast. It's the mask of the beast, mask of the beast. Faceless cock, another NPC. Oh, I think they made a typo, just like Tuttle Bottle, but the R is the S. Double E, yeah. Whoa, wow, whoa, wow, whoa, wow, whoa, wow. WWWWWF. Now you're out of breath. It's the mask of the beast, 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 mask of the beast. Faceless cock, another NPC.
Alright everyone, that's Mask of the Beast by Chief Crow and the Flat Earth Worms. One of the greatest things to come out of 2020. We may have lost a lot that year in terms of productivity and collective sanity, but a lot of good art, a lot of good music, a lot of good memes, and a lot of good communities were formed. Not just the QAnoners. I think a lot of rational, clear-thinking perceivers were able to actually kind of get together and realize, okay, there's not many of us, so we kind of got to stick together. Thanks for joining. Looking in chat, Andrew Munchkin, Zinvelis, Steve Schmidt, Lilith, Clockwork 113, Kevin Mooring. And we have a Portal Complex and Garrett, Polecat 78, we AJ 206 already in the chat. So this is just a continuation of the 24/7 live stream. If you want to know where to find us at any time, just go to infiniteplane.radio, where it plays 24/7. And at the end of the live streams, I cut it off for a minute for archival purposes, but it goes right back on. But it never stops at Infinite Plane Radio. Infinite Radio. So let's see, what can we start with? Oh, I started with the song Mask of the Beast, because I wanted to make a point here. The song is obviously a satire, a parody, the idea that the greatest trick the devil ever played was not convincing the world that he didn't exist, but switching out an S for an R. So everyone's waiting for the mark of the beast on the face at the end of the world, and they get tricked, and they all put on the mask of the beast. Obviously, it's a joke, but I was selling masks. I sold hundreds of plague masks right when the thing started, mostly to make an ironic statement. It was not meant to actually protect people from anything. We realized this thing was a joke. The thing is, if you don't participate, you kind of lose in the meme war. So we figured, well, I figured, you know, why would I just stand back and say, well, I don't approve of masks, so I'm not going to do anything with these things. Well, I wasn't selling masks for profit. I was listing masks to occupy that cultural space. It's all about remaining in the meme pool and then putting ironic, confusing, bizarre, or poignant statements on the mask, like 1984 or the 666. So it's not as simple as if you are selling the mask, you endorse the entire WHO agenda and you are therefore a shill. And some people can't appreciate nuance or ambiguity. And the person who called me a shill for selling masks would be one of the, I'd say the king of the Mandoozled. The king of the Mandoozled goblins. And, I don't really care for ad hominem, but yesterday it was pretty terrible the way they went after my ebook, The Mandela Effect. They were so mad about it. And I don't really have really anything at all to add to the conversation. I think that the book speaks for itself, the ebook does, and their response speaks for itself, and people can make up their own minds as to who makes the better argument here. But we had a call at the end of the night last night by an actual Mandela affected type person who didn't really fit the mold and didn't agree with the idea that you should outgroup people who aren't also Mandela affected. And this sounds crazy, but if you didn't know, there's an actual cult of people who call you an NPC, a zombie, if you're not actually experiencing the same cognitive dissonance with corporate logos. Anyway, I think we pretty much put that thing in its place, but there's one point I wanted to bring up because I was called a liar, and that was the part that kind of triggered me a little bit. And so I just want to mention this. It is one of the popular Mandela effects is that Timmy fell down the well. And so on his live stream, Brian said that he remembers Timmy being brought out of the well. Because in my book, in the ebook, I said, you will never find any Mandela affectee that can tell you how Timmy got out. So he says, I remember Timmy being pulled out. I actually have a quote. But what's more, he said, and by the way, John Provost, aka Timmy, his autobiography is called Timmy's in the Well. Slam dunk. So I'm like, whoa, John Provost wrote a book called Timmy's in the Well? Do the Mandela affected have a point? Well, it turns out no. So Timmy fell into an abandoned mine shaft. He fell into rivers. He fell off cliffs. He fell into lakes. He fell into quicksand. The one thing that Timmy never fell in was a well. So John Provost called the autobiography Timmy's in the Well, kind of as a tongue-in-cheek joke. So he was never in the well. So when Stavely said he remembered Timmy being pulled from the well, that was technically a lie. So since then, I've been calling it the Lidella effect. Clockwork 113 says, did Ron Watkins return the call yet? Let me check my messages. Probably not. He seemed extremely busy. I could probably call him. It's probably a good time of evening, but we'll get to that. David Polk had a comment. He said, if you woke up tomorrow and your channel was called Infinite Planet Society, would you consider yourself Mandela affected, or that you simply misremembered and fell for a psyop? Interesting point. Yeah, because I'm suggesting the whole thing is a psychological operation. There's a few things to talk about tonight. President Neo, Alex Jones going to jail, and JFK Jr.'s anti-aging cream. So let's start with JFK Jr.'s anti-aging cream. Let's see here. Kevin Mooring says hotels are killing the elites. Yeah, if I was in the Illuminati, if I was one of these Hollywood adrenochrome junkies with a lot of influence and stuff, I wouldn't go to the hotels. That's where they take you out. Steven says, can you speak to the Discord terms service for 328? I haven't checked, but I just assume every one of these platforms is going to sell out at some point here. Okay, so this is the JFK Jr. hawking anti-aging products on Telegram. We also have a very neat commercial. It's Kim Jong-un doing an Elon Musk impersonation with a missile launch. So they're launching a missile into the air. And by the way, the missiles that you watch, like, okay, so we talk about fake space, fake rockets, how it's all obviously fake and CGI. Well, look, these rockets that they use to terrify you, these things from North Korea, these are so much faker than what even NASA shows us. But anyway, this is North Korea airs this video, kind of a promo piece, some PR, for their new rocket, and he's trying to be like Elon Musk. But I'm like, no, you're launching missiles, not rockets. You're not building some space heaven. You got a weapon to terrorize people. But he comes out with, I mean, it's actually a neat production. I mean, it makes him look cool like Tom Cruise or something. I knew he was losing weight, and I was like, what is he doing? What's the agenda here? And I think what we're looking at here is he's kind of like a movie star. And they do represent him as a movie star here. He looks very musky. With flashy effects and music, North Korea's state TV aired their leader, supervising the launch of a new ICBM. I love this. So he points like 7 times. And everybody's, this is just to make it look like he's calling the shots, or like he's like what do? You push one button. But a slow motion, pointing again, and now here's the rocket. Now again, when you look at these things, you have to remember, you're looking at supposedly a weapon or whatever, but compare it to your average Blue Origin launch. If you just look at it, it's the same special effects. It's the same CGI fire. It's the same nonsense. And they even have like this drone camera way up in the sky ready to record the rocket right as it passes by. But this is as fake as anything that you see from the space agencies. And I often wondered, does Kim Jong-il just buy his blimps from Jeff Bezos and then spray paint them olive drab and then claim it's some kind of world-destroying missile? These things are so phony. So anyway, just one less thing for you to be afraid of. But let me play the rest of this. So look how they're presenting this like it's a rocket launch and this is some achievement for mankind. No, this is just a weapon. But this is again, this is the Elon Muskification of Kim Jong-un. And then they all check their watches. And this part's really good. I love the slow-mos, but you got to see when he takes his glasses off. Okay, here we go. This guy's a movie star now. And they did multiple takes. You know, they had multiple takes of him removing those glasses. Let me watch that one more time. Okay, here we go. Now it gets better. It gets better. So he pushes the button. The thing launches up, and you know how when they launch a rocket at NASA or SpaceX, everybody cheers and they hug? It happens here, and these soldiers break down in tears. And they've been called out for their fake rockets before. Again, it's almost like they hired Elon Musk to do their graphics. And what's nice about this ICBM, it's got a camera looking back at the world that it's going to come back down and destroy. Like, why do you have a camera on this thing anyway? Just wait until you see the crying soldiers, though. Now here he is. Look, he's uncomfortably bent over that table there. Like, this is not befitting of a world leader. This is just not how anybody should be photographed. It just looks awkward. But he's pointing again. Slow motion cheers, hugs, clapping. Oh, this is so staged. Okay, now the best part though is when the soldiers come out and cry. Okay, there you have it. North Korea's new missile launch promo video, action movie style. Okay, next, JFK Jr. hawking anti-aging products on Telegram. So if you go to the Telegram account, JFK Real, it says, boom, President Trump, and this guy's got 32,000 followers. President Trump decided to reveal the secret anti-aging product he's been using. The amazing product renews the cells in your body and makes you look younger. Have you noticed he looks much younger? Because of the overwhelming demand for this product, the stock is limited and very low. You can check the availability below. Now, it makes you look younger, sure, but does it make you live longer? That's what I'm interested in. Is this life extension? So there you have it, JFK Jr., and it says boom. You have a picture of an aged Trump on the left and a fitter, shorter, slimmer Trump right there on the right. He got younger, it says. Again, it's a secret anti-aging product he's been using, and there's a link here. It's called Cell X. And you know, a lot of people believe that this is JFK Jr., just so you know. All right, let us continue. And look, I thought this thing was going to go away. I thought we could stop talking about Q. No, Q is now, it's already, it's at the highest levels. You'll see here. Apparently, Clarence Thomas's wife is a big QAnoner, and this is a problem. And so they're going through her tweets, and they're finding out that Ginny Thomas's texts were all about Q and sending people to Guantanamo, locking people up, overturning the election. Ginny Thomas texts spark ethical storm about husband's Supreme Court role. And again, this is all having to do with January the 6th. And then connected to this, kind of, not really. I mean, Jones was there, but Alex Jones is in trouble now because he's actually ditched 2 different Sandy Hooker depositions. And on both of these dates, where he supposedly couldn't go because he was sick, he was doing live shows. So now the Sandy Hookers are actually calling for his arrest. Now when I say that, it's just because we're talking about a group of people who are apparently more or less selling out their country, selling out everything. I mean, this whole Second Amendment thing is just the tip of the iceberg. They're using this to also go after the First Amendment. Anyway, Sandy Hook families seek Alex Jones' arrest after second no-show. Lawyers for the school shooting victims asked a judge to arrest InfoWars' host, Alex Jones, after he defied a court order to attend a deposition as part of a lawsuit over his calling the massacre a hoax. So the thing is, he backtracked on the story and he believes it's real, or publicly he does, and he says the people who believed him are mentally ill. So I don't really feel sorry for him. And then he was, raising money to pay these people or something. And it turns out he sold $165 million worth of super male vitality, aka Gwyneth Paltrow's sex goop. $165 million worth. Anyway, Jones he had these 2 depositions. He missed them. He said health problems, including vertigo. So we'll see. The judge, Barbara Bellis, did not immediately rule on the arrest request. She set a hearing by video conference for Wednesday next week. So the family's motion, filed late Friday afternoon, requests that Jones be arrested and detained until he sits for a deposition and be fined $50,000 a day until he completes the questioning. So I think this is all just a ruse to make it scary for regular people to dare speak out against MSM narratives. Kevin Mooring says it will be a nothing burger, and Jones CIA knows the truth. I think he does, and the truth is on his side. I don't know why he had to backflip on. I mean, he really did. He flip-flopped on it pretty bad. Let's see. Trump's out speaking tonight. Matt Pizzagates was there. MTG was there. I haven't checked out on. I haven't listened to much of it, but I'll peruse it after. A lot of QAnon stuff is actually coming back, though. And it's all because of what's going on at the Supreme Court. Not only is it Ginny Thomas's texts, but some QAnon sort of dog whistles have been tossed out regarding one potential new justice's record on crimes against children. It's all just coming back in time for the midterms. So If you're tired of the Kool-Aid, it's not going away. Kind of like the Mandela effect. Emmy and QAnon are not going away. QAnon leader Ron Watkins surpasses signatures needed for Arizona ballot. Yes, top QAnon are running. This is clown show. It's just clown world. What is this? This guy is potentially connected to Q. He knows who Q is, and he's not speaking. And by the way, I have some vindication here. So I've been talking about how Q drops continued, how he moved, not moved, but they stopped dropping them in the chans, and they just used George News chat threads to do this. Well, I did some research, and someone else independent of me actually came to the same conclusion. So there's a guy he was actually kicked off Twitter, Jim Stewartson. He's on Substack, and another guy who goes by Patsy here on Twitter. He says, "Hey Jim, George News has replaced Q," and this is from February of 2021. They have proofs. Look into it. This is a full-fledged freakout. George News is a full-time Trump channel frequented by the QAnon plus people. So there's a few threads I found where people have found out that yes, the QAnon movement never lost touch with Q. As far as the news media knows, the last drop was in December of 2020, and it was a link to a song "We're Not Gonna Take It" by Twisted Sister. Kind of an ironic pick, because obviously as a reference to the election thing, but the singer from Twisted Sister, Dean, is it Snyder? That guy was totally a mask hole. He was I guess what happened was you had these masked protesters going through a Target playing the song "We're Not Gonna Take It." Here we go. Target mask protesters play Twisted Sister's "We're Not Gonna Take It." And so here's the guy who in a previous life was somehow anti-authoritarian. He wasn't going to take it. He just wants to rock. And now he says, "You're moronic for playing that song." He actually said, "These selfish a-holes do not have my permission or blessing." You don't have Dee Snider's blessing to play the song as an anti-mask anthem. Says, "These selfish a-holes do not have my permission or blessing to use my song for their moronic cause." The rock star was reacting to a viral video showing people walking without masks through a Fort Lauderdale store this week, yelling at customers to remove their own facial coverings. "We're Americans, breathe," one woman screamed. "It's all a lie. Take it off, you don't need it." And this was a burn your mask day thing they did. I think this was a flash mob at Target. God, 2020 was just so pathetic.
All right, hit it.
Woo! Girls mask.
Woo! All right, we're tired of shopping with masks on, and now we're taking the mask off because we're done with it.
Take her off.
Take off your mask and breathe. Breathe. You're Americans. Breathe.
All right, anyway, that was enough. Dee Snider did not like that, and he said it's moronic, and he was not standing by that cause. But somehow, anyway, he got mixed up with the QAnon crew. In fact, you can find, if you care to see this, General Flynn was doing karaoke at one of these Q events, and he's saying, "We ain't gonna take it." So every time I hear of this guy, we're talking about General Flynn, saying that he's not with this group Q, he's suing CNN, or his sister is suing CNN over this association between him and Q. It's like he constantly throws out these dog whistles. But that Reawaken America tour is great. You can find a lot of excellent real choice cringe. I'm not going to punish anybody here. We somehow got into this because this is the cult of JFK Jr. And this is a fascinating story. I mean, it's easy to just minimize it and ignore it, but the fact is, it's not a new story. What you're actually looking at here is this kind of a myth. It's more than an urban myth. This is actually what the QAnoners believe. This is their true core belief here, is that JFK was the second coming, and the deep state tried to take him out. So he went undercover after faking his death, or surviving an assassination attempt, however you want take that. But basically, he and his son, John F. Kennedy Jr., are going to make an appearance and save the world, and Trump's working for them. But basically, we're talking about the second coming of Christ. So that's where these people are at. And so I see this JFK Jr. site, and they're claiming that Trump is younger from using some cream. Anyway, what do you make of this? It's beyond just a cult, though. But again, it's not something you can ignore. It's become unignorable. It's going to come back to haunt us this election season. Let me go ahead and go through some things I had noted, some various... here's the main one. President Neo. So Mr. Most Woke sent me a message. He said, "The head shave confirms it for me. President Neo World Order Joe." So I'm pretty sure I've cracked this case wide open. Joe Biden equals Keanu Reeves. Look at the head shape. Reminds me of Biden. What would be more appropriate for Neo to be playing Lord Emperor of Earth's Matrix, Joe Biden? I think it might be him, just based on the, quote, irony as evidence theory. Got a bet on the Illuminati choosing the 180-degree opposite for a villain to play Earth's #1 villain. So this person messaged me to say that he thinks that Joe Biden might be played by Keanu Reeves. So I did a little cursory examination here, and the first thing that stood out to me was they do have a similar demeanor, and their eyes have a similar vacancy. And I've always thought that Keanu Reeves was very vacant. Skull shape, mouth, there's quite a lot there. I don't think that's Biden's nose, but I don't know. I'd have to take another look. But interestingly enough, Neo, or Keanu Reeves, just shaved his head. So that kind of makes me wonder, well, why did he shave his head? But anyway, we're looking at a comparison of CGI Joe and Neo from The Matrix. And it got me thinking about The Matrix itself, the movie. And it's probably not all that good. I haven't watched it lately. I don't plan to. But it got me thinking about how when that movie came out, like right after it came out, like a week later, you had the Columbine shooting in Littleton, Colorado, which was blamed on not just Marilyn Manson or KMFDM, but it was blamed on The Matrix. They made these connections here that the trenchcoat mafia was inspired by the aesthetics, perhaps. But this is all very much connected, because I'm thinking, wait, Columbine shooters, Matrix, what is a connection here? Does The Matrix inspire The Disturbed? When Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold attacked Columbine High School on April 20th, 1999, killing 13 themselves. Anyway, reckoning with the Matrix gun problem. Bullies in black trench coats. Keanu Reeves blamed for Parkland and Columbine. So my point is this, though. From the very beginning, it seems like there's been this agenda to associate Matrix breakers with violence. People who see through the system or don't trust it. People who are calling out big lies are immediately being characterized as somehow violent. So you have this archetype they put out there. And what's more, so my point being, and I've said this before, that the Hollywood obsession with gun violence, their pornification of guns, is not a pro-gun move. It's actually subtle anti-gun agitprop. They're unselling people on the idea of this type of weaponry. And I think it's all a concerted effort here. So they're putting guns in this light where, yeah, they're associating it with the rebels, the outsiders, the ones who disrupt the order, the school shooters, of course the neo-Nazis, and of course the symbolism, the iconography speaks for itself. And I'm just suggesting here that this is predictive programming. You look at this Columbine shooter, and he looks like Neo. He looks like he dressed up Neo from The Matrix. And you can find plenty of information if you care to look about the drill, about the event that wasn't really a shooting at Columbine. And then you look at the characters associated with it. Michael Moore Cheeseburgers, Marilyn Manson, and you can kind of see a picture coming together. I think Marilyn Manson helped to bring out this image of the bowl-cut, neo-Nazi, disaffected teenager that represents this new existential threat. You know, this is a new devil they created. But anyway, the whole thing was hoaxy as heck, and I think it ties in to the Matrix intentionally. And of course, the shooting followed the release just by a few days. Going through some comments. Lloyd Miller says JFK Jr. is a Democrat. Yeah, isn't that fascinating how that works? Everything is topsy-turvy, where you have all of the hardline Trumpers, Republicans, are waiting for this Democrat to come save them. Jenna says, Mask of the Beast came on in perfect timing. I was at a stoplight while a masked guy crossed the street. He was like, WTF. Yeah, I still see some of them. And good for them. You know, they don't have to do it. They feel like they're still in danger or whatever, but there's no mandate. And if there's no mandate and they're doing it, you know, I can't really tell them not to. It's as long as they're not telling me to put a dunce cap on, feel free to wear a dunce cap. Because that's what it actually is, in my opinion. Alright, let's see what else we have. I'm going through your comments. Oh, here's a connection somebody said. Oh yeah, let's get into the drummer. The Foo Fighters drummer. We might talk about this thing because it looks very psyop-y. There's quite a lot there to go into. A few more comments. David Polk said, this was in response to the Mandela thing. I grew up on Mr. Rogers. He always sang In the Neighborhood. You can psychoanalyze us until the cows come home, but we understand the difference between misremembering and being affected. The unaffected ones are the ones with the superiority complex. People have different gifts and abilities. I can see auras. I always considered I could be fooled, but our critics can't seem to acknowledge that they don't possess spiritual gifts. So if you don't believe in the Mandela effect, you're not spiritually endowed. You're and he says that you have a superiority complex, although you don't have any kind of a soul. Okay, fine. Call me soulless and then tell me I have the superiority complex. Zulu 1 says IPS is a Bond supervillain. Dark Glasses Woody says, I don't know anything about IPS. I do know that he has the most motivated trolls. Alright, let's go on. Again, I'm just going through some comments I hadn't been able to follow up on. Again, I try not to miss anything at all. Again, Brian Stavely said, quote, I remember them bringing Timmy back alive. Oh, here's another one, another noteworthy celebrity death. So we've been talking about Pete Davidson and how his father died on 9/11 in the towers at the age of 33. WWE star Zelina Vega lost her father on 9/11. And sure enough, I checked out the tombstone and I'm like, yep, 33. What are the odds? There's a pattern here. And again, the tower's construction started in 68. The towers were 33 years old when they were pulled. So all these coincidences have piled up, and there are some coincidence theorists who still believe the official story. But we've detected a pretty big pattern, and I found a number of publicly declared dead who aren't on the rosters. There are so many inconsistencies. Anybody can look into these things. But I'm just pointing out that this is another 33-year-old who died on 9/11. Another celebrity, adjacent person. Okay, let me play a short clip here from yesterday. I uploaded this. I don't remember why.
The Christian world remembers the fucking Lion and the Lamb, including every fucking pastor, preacher, every fucking person in the truth movement, every stained glass window. I can observe that they flew in the fucking MGM Lion to the fucking Biblical College, Ambassador College out there in California to shoot a Lion and Lamb commercial because it was the fucking Lion and the Lamb.
As under the Redeemer's gentle reign, the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid.
That's from Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, 1974. Yeah. One thing you can say about the Mandela effect is that they are really certain about the things that they don't know, this is a post in Discord from Moo. She said, Brian S. said you couldn't find Mr. Rogers' It's a Beautiful Day in This Neighborhood anywhere. Or maybe he thinks it was It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Rogers said it a bunch of different ways over the years. This is not a Mandela effect. So apparently, there are contradictions as to whether or not this Mr. Rogers thing is even a Mandela effect. So when he went through the book yesterday, I think he opened a can of worms because there's a lot of people now looking at some of these things. Just doesn't even take a lot of research. It took me 5 seconds to find out that Timmy didn't fall down the well. And the reason for John Provost titling his book, Timmy's in the Well, was sheer irony. He was just basically making a point that that's the one place that Timmy didn't end up.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood. Everybody get that?
Beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day
Hey,
for
that line you just heard should not exist in this reality. It shouldn't. So that soundbite just deconstructs one of the major cornerstones of the Mandela effect paradigm. I mean, I hate to do this. I'm not here trying to wreck anybody's religious system. I've been called a God blocker. I've been called a consciousness assassin. It's been said of me that I have dark vibes, that I work for the adversarial consciousness that controls this place. All because I don't agree with this particular set of whatever. Finbar says, who gives an F? So important. Yeah, well, yeah, it seems trivial, but it's not to them. Because if it's true, then nothing's off the table. It's a big if, though. But anyway, just someone in Discord had posted that. I just had to take note. Alright, we looked at Kim Jong-il's ridiculous rocket launch. This is an interesting little story someone sent to me. These little things stand out. Just kind of a hoaxy story about how guns are everywhere. There's a pandemic of guns. That they're flowing down the streets, rivers of guns. It's just gun hype. They always hype up the fear of guns. And again, I think this is all just stage. But after this press conference, I'm going to just play the last 30 seconds, and you shouldn't be surprised by what you hear.
Criminality and lead to violence and deteriorate the quality of life for everyday New Yorkers.
Commissioner Sewell says this is the result of precision policing and sends this message to anyone who thinks about picking up a gun, let alone selling them.
If you traffic in these deadly weapons, you will be arrested and prosecuted. Every investigator and prosecutor working this case had one objective: to make the city safer.
Okay, so this is just a piece about this this bust. But if you missed,
push in a shopping cart down.
If you missed it though, there's a conspicuous number of guns that they had uncovered. Just one moment here. Another one of these. Again, it's just to me. I'm just bringing this up because I get these leads from people, and they're like, "Look at this high-profile police bust," and they just happened to collect 33 of these illegal guns off the street. It has "order out of chaos" written all over it. Let's move on, though. Speaking of 33, there's a 33-year-old hoax called global warming. And anything that's 33, pay attention to it when it comes to these world stage events. Like I said, the Twin Towers were 33. Global warming's 33. Maybe this is the year they managed to make it happen. But Ricky Gervais, the comedian, takes a swipe at the boomer generation. Global warming is all our fault. Now, they say comedians. And look, I don't know if I can consider these people to be comedians when all they do is they reinforce state propaganda. He made this jab during some comedy show. The new show is going to be called Armageddon. This is his joke, quote, The new show is going to be called Armageddon, and it's going to be about how I think humanity will end. Whether we will evolve, go to another planet, or will we destroy it with the things at our disposal. People born this century are going to have a different middle age to me. It's my fault. The boomers with fossil fuels and deforestation causing global warming. So 20-year-olds today, in 40 years' time, they'll be huddled in their houses like prisons, wearing masks, afraid, in pain, and crying. I'm going to spend all my money on private jets to make sure it happens. I guess that's his joke. But anyway, the basis of this joke is the world has been destroyed by the old. This is why Greta came out with that speech. This is why Elsa from Frozen gave the same speech. And Disney admits that Elsa is based on Greta Thunberg. So it's all about blaming the old versus young, communism, disguised as environmentalism. But here he is basically blaming himself for having destroyed the world. And this idea that we're all going to be prisoners in our homes because of global warming, yes, climate lockdowns are a thing. And wait until the internet lockdowns happen. In his opening monologue, he said, quote, "So if you want to win in a war tonight, don't use it as a platform to make a political speech. You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the real world. Most of you spent less time in school than Greta Thunberg." Again, these are jokes, government-approved jokes from a government jester to reinforce the dominant propaganda lines of the day. Not quite comedy. Now, if anyone's very interested in this, and look, I'm almost bored to tears with the whole topic, but I'm just doing it because it's work that needs to be done. But I did find a really good video that actually deconstructs all of the so-called biblical Mandela effects. So anybody who thinks that the Bible is changing as a result of this, we actually have something that would challenge that assertion. The idea that CERN or some kind of reality shift has changed the Bible. And the researcher who put all this together and debunked all of it is a believer, and he does believe that the Mandela effect is a part of a, quote, a falling away and a great deception into some kind of false satanic spirituality. So, are the Mandela affected walking a dark path? Possibly.
Deceived by it. So it's well worth discussing because we need to help each other and protect and defend against these attacks from the enemy. Now, it drew my attention for a couple of hours, and as the deception is becoming increasingly clear, and once you start actually researching into the origins of this so-called phenomenon, you start to look into the language and see how it's actually rather cleverly and underhandedly a psychological phenomenon that is taking a memory from one place, attributing it to another place, and then convincing you it was there in the first place. It's nothing more than psychological warfare on the Christian's mind. And as this picture says, who benefits?
Now, that was my contention with my ebook, that this is psychological warfare, that it's sabotage, that the truthers, or rather those who see through the fake news, are being targeted with this psychological warfare operation. So let me play a few more seconds.
Who benefits from this? Who benefits from confusion, from doubt, from fear? And why? What possible reason could this be going on? And why would it be focused on the King James Version primarily? The one version that people have at least come to a solid foundation on, that the King James Version is a version of the Bible.
Now, the video is called "Has CERN Really Changed the Bible?" by Rise, spelled $E. So anyway, interesting video, came out in 2016. It's been out there, so anybody who's promulgating this or that Bible verse is having changed because of CERN or whatever, Ed McMahon, yeah, you really probably haven't evaluated the counter evidence. Again, I brought this point up. I think it's an interesting one here just because we're looking at matrix breakers depicted as insurrectionists, violent terrorists and threat to the order. And as I was saying, Hollywood gun porn is actually just slick anti-gun agitprop. And that's why you had the association of the Matrix movie with the Columbine massacre fake. Matrix was released on 3/31/1999. Columbine was on 4/20, so less than a month later. Okay, so let's go on into this next topic. Taylor Hawkins. We're talking about the drummer for the Foo Fighters and his untimely passing. Thread here on Twitter goes into this. Foo Fighters drummer Taylor Hawkins has passed. In Studio 666, he's killed by possessed David Grohl in an effort to create a song that unleashes demons into the world. The trailer ends with his death. In the beginning, he mocks David Grohl, asking if everyone feels a sense of death. So, Foo Fighters is a group that was formed by David Grohl after the death of 27 Clubber, well, possibly 27 Clubber. Because we're talking about death fakers kind of being associated with one another, but Kurt Cobain. So, a Kurt Cobain associated musicians band, Foo Fighters, is now associated with another death. Maybe it's not extraordinary, but you get into the story here. So again, we're looking at this project he's a part of right now, and it's called Studio 666. And the Foo Fighters drummer, Taylor Hawkins, dead at 50. Now, they said it was some kind of, I believe it was just a heart attack or something. But my point is, let me bring up this clip here from Rolling Stones. This whole thing looks like a story. So we're talking about, in Studio 666, he's killed by David Grohl. Let me read this part here. Taylor Hawkins was the last band member to complete his part in the song that would unleash demons into the world. The drummer had one task. That was to keep Dave busy while the remaining musicians try to save their friend. He made the mistake of finishing his work, and Dave threw a cymbal like a frisbee, cutting Taylor's face in half. The top half remained on, the cymbal stuck on the wall, and the body slid to the floor. Taylor Hawkins had some sharp equipment. Interesting. So he dies. Now here's where it gets more metascripty. Okay, so the trailer ends with David Grohl asking if anyone feels a sense of death. The movie's called Studio 666, about the Foo Fighters revealing secrets about the music industry. The house that they're in is a portal for spirits, and it's designed to produce a frequency that they use in their music. So they're recording it at this place because it has certain, I guess, qualities, characteristics that make it conducive to demon summoning. I'm going to play a short clip from the trailer.
This place is amazing.
Okay, so you have this, you have a movie involving demonic summonings, etc. Not all that original. Might be funny though. Kind of reminds me of one of these Sam Raimi films, Necronomicon. These people go out into the woods, some kind of demon thing. But I was looking into this and I found something kind of interesting. So in the movie, they're in a band called Dream Widow. Dream Widow. And if you look on the screen, you'll see their album cover. And it's a, here we go, unicursal hexagram. That's the main symbol of the Thelemite occultists used in demonic invocations and evocations. It's a hexagram drawn with one line. So instead of two triangles intersecting, it's a single line. And the symbolism here is that with the hexagram, you have the big open area in the middle. In this case, it actually puts an X in the middle. And the idea is that this is, again, representing something that emerges from the, well, the summoning. This is the entity, the merging of the summoner and the thing coming down. It's possession is what it's actually about. Possession. Invocation is possession. So anyway, David Grohl releases the album on 3/25, the day that Hawkins died. So again, the fictional band's album comes out the day the guy dies. And again, in the movie, he died. I have some lyrics here, various tracks to go through. I haven't read them all, but there's plenty here about, you could consider it to be foreshadowing, but I'm going to continue to follow along with this. Another thing, I believe one of the last persons to tweet him alive was Jonathan Stamos, or is it, yeah, you know, the guy from Full House. So, Full House, that brings in a connection. John Stamos, and I have to get the exact Instagram or tweet, but Stamos apparently was one of the last ones to message this person, which, like I said, there's all these connections between these various death fakers, and always interesting to explore those connections. Anyway, this is the thread about this movie and Studio 666 about a fictional band, Dream Widow, and how the fictional band seems to correlate with the real story or synchronicity of this guy dying as the album's released. So I guess next we should expect some kind of demonic horde to be released upon the world or whatever. Alright, let me go through some comments. Andrew says there are demons, though. Don't underestimate that. I've seen him myself, and a shapeshifter werewolf. Have you seen a bat squatch? The new episode of South Pole in progress has a bat squatch. Also, I want to say thanks to all of you who've been purchasing the non-fungible tokens, building your digital asset portfolios. You can get non-fungible tokens at timosman.win, W-I-N. This is where I sell the art, but I just don't have time right now to do paintings. It takes too much time to go to the post office. It's a whole other job. So right now I'm focusing on digital art, but it's all logged in the blockchain. You own it for life. It does have some potential value. It has some value to it. It has some utility, but it may turn into something else later. The value may actually accrue. These are, for the most part, one of one unique pieces. So yes, you could right-click and download or save these things. That's not the point. To be the actual owner of it, yeah, you just have to go to timosman.win, and it made it really easy. You can get these with PayPal, credit card, it doesn't matter. If you don't have any sort of wallet for the Wax blockchain, it opens one up for you when you click the link. Anyway, I think we sold out today. I had a bunch of them ready, so when we went live, I was going to post a link, and then yeah, they all got cleared out because I post the links in Discord. Alright, let's see here. Psyopsical says that's working the SEO with all those dates. Yeah, you know, they could be creating intrigue around an album release. Isn't that what they do with a lot of these death fakers in the music industry? It's like I think in 2020, and I found some article about this. In 2020, the highest selling recording artists were dead rappers. The best selling, yeah, here we go. Find the exact link, but yeah, the ones making all the money though were people who had pretty much just died, and I thought, well, this might be a standard industry practice. Juice WRLD, oh, this is the Juice WRLD's Legends Never Die marks the biggest posthumous debut since Notorious B.I.G.'s Life After Death. Interesting. Of course, Notorious B.I.G.'s death is very suspect. I mean, if you care to look, there's a pretty good case to be made that Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac are actually both part of a new group, a kind of a super group called Jurassic 5. And they kind of low-key maintain a tour schedule, they produce a lot of music. They're still doing their thing. They're just not as out in the open. But they hardly changed anything. The CIA disguises leave a lot to be desired. Juice WRLD's Legends Never Die. Now, legends is a word that I see frequently associated with death fakers. I have no reason to believe this one is actually a real death. We've looked into this one. Interesting story, though. They're all very intriguing. We may go back. In fact, I'm working on a series of 10-minute videos. I'm doing outlines for the most part now. But I'm honing in on each and every suspected death faker, deep faker, putting a catalog together, you could say. All right, I'm going to open up phones here in just a moment. It's 833-311-1984. So we've been talking about the Lidella effect, Alex Jones going to jail, JFK Jr.'s anti-aging cream. President Neo, I don't have a whole lot there. Other than someone suggested to me that their skulls are very similar and that it makes sense from the perspective of irony as evidence that Neo might be playing the role of Biden. Let me play this short clip here. JT33 posted this. Rip Jordan Maxwell. Here's a track, Wake the Masses, where he mixed in a Jordan Maxwell monologue.
I keep my mind over matter, all I see is propaganda.
Wake up now, who are you? Are you self? Are you truth? Are you Kaz of a cow?
Genius as they are, don't matter old and later. If this their new normal,
I'm going to go ahead and play this video at the end, but I'm going to play the part where Jordan Maxwell's in there. It's a pretty nice piece. So if you didn't know, I haven't followed up on this. If anyone else has any more information, feel free to share. But Jordan Maxwell, they say he passed on 3/23. Again, a legend in the field of really world stage deconstruction, decoding the secret language of the elite. 60 years plus in this arena, and it's an evolving area. You might have all the answers or think you have the answers. Maybe you have the best possible answers with the information available, but new information becomes available all the time. And here we go. So whether or not you agree with all of his conclusions, the research speaks for itself.
So the point I'm making here is that for 3,200 years, Rome has dominated Europe. And for 3,200 years, Europe has dominated the world. Therefore, there is an old saying that all roads lead to Rome.
And that's a song called Wake the Masses. So if you like Jordan Maxwell, I'll put a link in the chat. We'll play that later. It's a great piece. Okay, yeah, phones are open, 833-311-1984. Again, Watergate reporter says the Ginny Thomas Mark Meadows bombshell is unprecedented entanglement. So Q has made its way into the news again. Clarence Thomas's wife was apparently trying to get him to help with this effort to overturn the election. So it brings up a lot of questions and pretty much guarantees that Q's not going away, and it shows you that this is a story that they... I mean, this is really interesting to me, because I don't think these people are really legitimately trying to fight some kind of war against the deep state. I think it's all a ruse against everybody. Specifically, though, the right wing, any kind of remnant of nationalism. Yeah, that's what they're aiming for, and the Q thing has worked. It's broad brush smeared an entire wing. Really the entire Republican Party now is looked at as insurrectionists. And this has all just been, if you ask me, a setup from the beginning. And this QAnon thing continues to look more ridiculous. And that's why I brought the story up about JFK Jr. hawking anti-aging products on Telegram. Like, it sounds absurd, but yeah, that's actually what's going on. This whole thing has been turned into something. Cult doesn't even do it justice. Okay, do you remember we were talking about how Kurt Cobain, possible death faker, may have come back as River Cuomo? I brought this up a couple of times. Well, anyway, here's a recent interview where Rivers Cuomo acknowledges this conspiracy theory that he is Nirvana's Kurt Cobain, having faked his death and figured out a way to make a more lasting kind of career out of music. Not this grunge, not screaming, no rage, just kind of chill. But anyway, he makes the case, yeah, this is probably him. He kind of plays into it, but And it's Rick Rubin, who's a music producer, who interviews him. But yeah, they're talking about this is River Cuomo actually
suicide in 1994 and carried on living his life as Rivers Cuomo. While Nirvana and Weezer are at seemingly opposite ends of the 90s music spectrum, a closer look reveals they're actually a lot more similar than you might think. In anticipation of Weezer's ambitious and incredibly catchy new album, OK Human, Rivers explains to Rick Rubin why the band ditched their classic guitar-based style for an orchestral sound. They also talk about the specific substances that Rivers took to write the hit song Hash Pipe. And Rivers entertains the Kurt Cobain conspiracy and plays along with Rick as if it were all true.
So I listened to it, and he didn't really give me any reasons to dispute it. You know, is Rivers Cuomo just a continuation of Nirvana? And they were role-playing like if it was true, here's how I would answer. But it all just sounded so legitimate.
4 times in a row and call that a chorus. And no one would get tired of my voice because it was so rich. But once they started singing with a very pure voice, like a choir boy voice, like you hear in...
Now here's what it says.
Say, Buddy Holly.
What people may not know is that a bizarre conspiracy theory is making its way around the internet that Rivers was actually Kurt Cobain, as in Kurt staged his death in '94 and carried on living his life as Rivers Cuomo. Now, the person who posted this in Discord had a few things to add on to this one. Did he become Weezer? And I'll bring up some of these little factoids. I was trying to find some kind of verification for a couple of them before I brought them up. But looking at it, it looks textbook. I mean, this is typical of how you would alter someone. You would invert things. You would upset expectations, reverse them. So David Pryor says, "It's crazy how they mock it. If Kurt's death was real and they weren't the same person, would they joke like this?" So there's a good point there. Would you joke about somebody's death? Why is Alex Jones and Joe Rogan still joking about the untimely, painful death of Bill Hicks? Maybe it's not a joke. Let me play a few seconds so you can hear them talking about this, just so you can see how flippant they are talking about someone who's supposedly dead.
You've sort of kept that in the repertoire?
Yeah, I did that without even noticing, honestly. Yeah, it's just a habit I hadn't yet broken.
I thought the idea of adding the glasses was a great idea because it really is like it's a perfect, it camouflages your face in a way that it really does create a new persona.
Yeah, but I did wear them in a big Nirvana video. I was in Bloom. So it's just like a little breadcrumb for people who are really paying attention, I guess.
Foreshadowing?
Yeah. You know, I was actually shooting that video that gave me the whole idea.
So we're listening to
looking back at it,
Rivers
like,
Cuomo talking about foreshadowing in Bloom, the video In Bloom, foreshadowing the type of glasses that he wears now, which help disguise his face. And he's being interviewed by Rick Rubin, a music producer, and they're talking about him as though he is Kurt Cobain. So David Pryor says, if Kurt's death were real and this wasn't the same person, would they joke like this? It's also a joke that the band is called Weezer, as Kurt was mocked towards the end of Nirvana for having a wheezy voice. In light of this, particularly in the Unplugged event, let's see here, he knew he was going to change characters, so he made them as different as possible, likely over-exaggerating it. So David Pryor is suggesting that Nirvana was, that Kurt Cobain was exaggerating his wheezy voice to make a very sharp contrast with his new persona's voice, which also would be standard. Fascinating. Okay, and we're going to get back to the Foo Fighters thing here in a minute as well, just in case anybody missed it. We're just talking about a psyop, a possible psyop with the 50-year-old drummer dying. The Foo Fighters, again, are an American rock band formed in 1994 in Seattle. The band was formed by David Grohl, the drummer for Nirvana, as a one-man project. So after Kurt Cobain supposedly died, became Rivers Cuomo, whatever it is, David Grohl went on to form this band that he's in now, the Foo Fighters. And the Foo Fighters, here we go, was a one-man project. But anyway, now we're looking at 2022, and David Grohl is involved in this new project called Studio 666. And it's about a band that, well, one of the musicians murders the other guys in his band. It's about a possessed singer. And again, there's some foreshadowing of David Grohl's drummer being killed, because it happens in the movie, and he dies in real life on the day that the fictional band releases an album. So on 3/25, the fictional band Dream Widow releases an album, and of course the whole point of the movie is that the sacrifice of the bandmate would release demons into the world, which is desirable for some reason. So anyway, my point being, David Grohl is a part of this, whether it's a psyop, a simulated sacrifice, whatever you want to call it. It appears to be a real-life version of what happened in this movie. Just a parallel story, blending fiction and reality. Jake says, I've never heard that Kurt is Rivers Cuomo. Oh yeah, this is actually kind of an old one. I hadn't really thought about it until recently. We talked about it last year. Did Kurt Cobain fake his death and reinvent himself as Rivers? It's really picked up in the last year. And so it's funny now, here he's talking with Rick Rubin, and they're just openly talking about it, and Rick would probably know. Rubin would know. And if you look, just search, you'll find images, and there are many side-by-sides. So what he would have had to have done is filled in his cleft chin, cut off his hair, and put on the nerd glasses. I mean, it's really not a huge change. And you can actually find images of Rivers Cuomo dressing up as Kurt Cobain, blurring these things. Fascinating. And again, strange that he would respond to it in that way. I'd say that's Duper's delight. All right, let's see here. Jared Board says, "Aw man, I missed the start of the stream." Get on the text alerts. Get the text message alerts. We have almost 150 people on there. Trying to get up to 300. Okay, so what have we? Tonight's topic, we have Alex Jones about to be arrested for skipping 2 Sandy Hooker depositions and still managing to go to InfoWars and do live shows. And so that kind of contradicts the idea that he's sick. So he's playing hooky from court, but he's still going to work. And so they're trying to get him arrested. So that's coming up next. Then we have President Neo. A listener out there, Mr. Most Woke, suggested that Neo might be portrayed right now, or rather Neo might be portraying your president, CGI Biden. CGI Joe. Is CGI Joe being played by Beau Biden, by Jim Carrey, or by Keanu Reeves? The Keanu Reeves thing, though, I mean, really, the skull shape, I would say, yeah, there's Keanu Reeves could conceivably play that. Oh yeah, Andrew says, Tim knows me because I found Mac Parhar, the Flat Earth Fokker, still alive in Canada. Yeah, Flat Earth Fokker is still alive. He's in Canada. They just moved him from anti-vax to anti-cop, pro-trucker, staged event. Exactly what you would expect. And in the news articles, they referred to him as just an anonymous guy with a camera. They didn't even name him. Everybody else got named. The old man that was being hassled by the police for honking his horn. And not only that, Mac Parhar was friends with the guy that burned 3 Masonic lodges on March 30th of last year. And just the fact that he is friends with somebody who is part of an obvious psyop, very suggestive of yet another psyop agent, an actor. They all hang out together. All the shills hang out together. Let's see, Alex Stein on Tucker Carlson. I called that on January the 12th. I said that Tucker would have Stein on. And it happened. And I based this on really just on Tucker's take on things. And on how the liberal media really doesn't really understand satire. They really don't. I mean, look at SNL. That is their attempt to be funny. The political left has as their stage for comedy SNL. They've got people like Jimmy Kimmel. That's what they consider comedy. So it shouldn't really surprise us that someone like Alex Stein could clown them and they think that it's one of theirs. They can't see through the parody of extremism. Now here's a surprise. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is basically on Team Bill Gates. Look at all these deceived people rallying behind this guy like he's their hero. They didn't do their due diligence. It took me 5 seconds to figure this one out. I'm like, let me see what RFK was doing pre-Vaxageddon. And look what he's doing. He's pushing lockdowns to save the planet. He pushes criminalization of climate change denial. This guy's as bad as Bill Gates, as bad as Bill Nye, as bad as Greta. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in a tweet, and this is from 2019. Climate change is a public health crisis. The science, yeah, it is. All the NPCs who came down with the COVIDs are now coming down with climate change. Climate change is a public health crisis. The science is really strong in telling us that climate change is accelerating. We expect heat waves to be more frequent, more intense, and longer. This is Robert Kennedy shilling for big climate climate change. This is just a big business. For the, what are we going to call it? The EPA, the Environmental Protectionist Agency. For the Church of Global Warming. But here he is calling it a public health crisis. And right after COVID, that's what we're going into. You know, COVID's being phased out. Now they're bringing in climate change as the next thing. But I'm just saying this is a major contradiction because climate change is a cover for the technocratic pretty much takeover of everything, including, I think, human reproduction. The whole idea of reducing the human population to save the planet is really not about saving the planet. It's about the elite maintaining a status quo and maintaining control over the sheeple. So, shouldn't surprise you. It doesn't surprise me. But yes, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Andrew says, can I call in about my werewolf experience? Please do. 833-311-1984. I can't promise I'll believe you. I really can't. You know, I get people call. I had 3 callers in the last 2 days who all know somebody who knew somebody who died at this event, that event, or this event. Like major league events associated with major psyops. And I'm like, wow. 3 callers. What are the odds? And what are the odds that somebody who knows somebody that died at Vegas or knows somebody who died with Kobe would be calling into this show where we routinely, like almost weekly, call out these events again and again? Okay, apparently we have in Family Guy a reference to the Skull and Bones Society. This is posted in Discord.
Look what I found! Wow, authentic Native American remains. Peter, I'd put that back if I were you. You may be disturbing a sacred burial site.
Hey, look, it's Robin Williams. Blah, 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 black preacher voice. Blah, 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 gay Elmer Fudd.
Now, that's interesting. Didn't Robin Williams die in Family Guy or fake die? I think so. Family Guy predicted even the 2 bombs for the Boston bombing. A lot of predictive programming in this thing. But yes, the skull of Geronimo was stolen by the Skull and Bone Society. It's at the tomb there at Yale. And Yale doesn't own the tomb or the property that it's on, so they can't do anything about it. But we were talking about the Skull and Bone Society because we just passed 322, which it's chapter 322. And by the way, it's the 42nd anniversary of the Georgia Guidestones. Here's another link from Rolling Stones. This one about Hawkins, the guy from Foo Fighters, the drummer who just died or left the world stage. Quote, here's a pro shot video of Everlong from that night, which wound up being the last song Hawkins played with the Foos. Quote, I don't say goodbye, David Grohl told the crowd before kicking it off. I don't like to say goodbye. I know that we'll always come back. If you come back, we'll come back. Will you come back? So then I won't have to say goodbye. So this was the final performance. Interesting. We're just looking for bits of predictive programming, foreknowledge, timing. Just the timing of his death with the release of that album kind of seals it for me. The whole thing is fake. Jake the A-hole says, I remember people on my Facebook list saying they knew people who were at the Vegas shooting and none can produce any proof. Yeah, I stopped listening to, not that I listened to her, but there was a flat earther who claimed that her gym teacher was killed in Vegas. And what was her name? Well, anyway, I called it out as a hoax. And all they can do is get mad at you. But I guess there was this rush. They see a big pile of bodies. They're like, oh, there's a lot of bodies there. A lot of people are dying. It'd be really easy to get some clout by being sort of a crisis actor, is what they do. Oh, it was Carly Sunshine. Carly Sunshine claimed that her gym teacher was killed at Vegas. But often, when somebody says something like that, they think you're going to get sensitive and not ask any questions. And I immediately ask, what's the name? Because sometimes they forget. And I'm like, oh, you don't remember the name of your friend that died on 9/11? Okay. Rich Flat says, I was personally shot and killed at a dozen staged shootings. Yeah, that's typical. Is your last name Sexton? A pregnant woman evacuated from a hospital, hit by something, and given up for dead by Western media. Today she reappears and is alive. There's a lot of this. And I have not seen anything believable. I heard there's a war going on. As far as I know, it's mostly just video game footage, miscontextualized. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hey, Tim, can you hear me? This is Andrew Munchkin, SpongeBob from D-Live.
Yeah, SpongeBob, you're the one who found Mac Parhard, the flat earth fucker, in Canada after he was dead.
Yes. I listened to Mark Parhar, and Brian Staveley for years. I think it was I don't know, 2-3 years or something. But I heard, I liked Mac, he was a good guy. And so, I know his voice. And when I finally I heard this guy, first of all, I heard this guy, he was covered with a mask. And he was wearing this green mask of a Pakistani ISIS or something, complaining at the Canada protest that the ISIS had a right to protest too, or something crazy like that. And he had this big green flag with white lettering on it in Arabic. And they interviewed him with Rebel News. And then I said, shit, the fucker's alive. Oh, excuse me, the guy's alive.
You said the fucker's alive? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I kept on looking, and then sure as shit, within about a couple days, that other video popped up on Rebel News or some news site there up at that thing. And that was Fokker. Anybody who's listened to Fokker 10 times knows that that's Fokker. The way he calls the guy, you can't be a Canadian and all this other shit, that's Fokker. He used to scream out the window like that of his car as he was spit out the window when he had COVID. That's him.
Yeah, I think so. And for anybody who didn't catch this, I called Mac Parhar's death 2 weeks before. I saw him driving.
You did.
I did. I called it.
Let me tell you something. I didn't even believe it. Up until that time, I was in mourning. You know how you lose a good YouTube friend, once in a while you lose them, And I was like that until you said that. And I said, maybe he's alive. And then I started looking at these protests because of you. And I found him, and that's why I sent it to you. And I had just found you right around that time too. You know, it's all like a, you know, coincidence, right? A coincidence, you know, Cohen, you know,
Yeah,
coincidence.
I don't believe in
And
coincidence anymore. I mean, I hear of these things. Some people have them, but no, I just see a very orderly universe that they try to tell us is chaos, but there's patterns,
yeah,
and I think we're a
listen,
part of it.
yeah, we are. And the thing that we're part of wants the best, you know, to happen to us. It's not out to fuck us over, you know, not unless you want to be fucked over and you're evil, you know, it's going to fuck you over big time. But if you're, you know, you're looking for the truth, you'll find it, you know, and it'll take you every way you got to go. If it's a spiral, you'll go the spiral around and around until you get to the center, you know. And, but let me tell you about this
The
thing I wanted
werewolf.
to
Yeah,
talk
let's
about.
get into the werewolf thing. What's up with the werewolf?
You know, this is an odd thing that happened to me. I was a bartender. This was in 19. This was after I was in the war. You know, in the '91 war, there, the Gulf thing, and I got out. I was one of the only soldiers that got out. I refused to fucking bomb people. I said, no fucking way am I going to be the angel of death, because I had ultra top secret security clearance with the military. I was a military policeman, and my job was to bring the nuclear bomb buster that busted that fucking bunker to kill those people. And I was in upstate New York, and I said, no effing way am I the angel of death, bro. And they did the whole thing. 3 a.m, wake me up, put the 45 on the desk, you know, the captain there, saying, pick it up, and all this shit. No way would I do it. And then I saved the DA's son of New York City. I saved his life. And I got out of the Army, bam, within a week. Just out of like a hookup, you know, getting out of it after refusing to do all of this shit. Because God will protect you, you know, if you go to Jesus. I'm just going to say it, right? But in any case, that's my story.
So you're a
But about the
conscientious
werewolf,
objector? Is that what you are? Is that what you were declaring?
oh, I just don't work for this Jewish mafia, you know, this Kabbalah. And it's not the average Jew on the street. It's these up guys who say they're Jews but are not. They're the synagogue of Satan. You know what I mean? And all the Jews worship them because they're rich.
Well, the
You know
best
what I
I
mean?
can say
'Cause
is this. It seems to me that everybody in the world is worshiping the beast. I can't point to any small group, but
Exactly.
I refer to it as the cult of the monolith because it is a universal cult.
Yeah.
But
Well,
whoever's
they
at the head
want
of the
us.
pyramid, yeah, we can,
They want us. They want us. Yeah, they want us to worship like a stupid block of stone. Okay, they really want you to do that. Meanwhile, they'll worship whatever the hell they want, which is what they create, because they are the Messiah. You know, it's a complicated thing. They are the Christ that they've been waiting for. But let's not get too into this religious stuff, because that's something you have to look for yourself. You know, like you got to sit down at night and pray to something. You know.
Well, hey,
But I'll tell you
let's talk about this then, the werewolf thing. So this is
yeah,
this is something
exactly.
now. Are you the werewolf, or was it something that you saw in somebody else?
No, no, no. I'm not. No, not that. Somebody else. I was working in. It was like 1993. 19. No, it was 1995, and I'm in northern Germany. And if you've ever been to northern Germany, there aren't any Americans there, you know. And the Germans know that the Americans are like a lot of Germans, you know. When you get into the under society of the Nazis, let's say, they know that they kill an American in a minute. Okay, they don't care if you're a Nazi or not. You fucking killed. You bombed cities. You know what I'm saying? Of grannies and opas and little kids, and burn them to death. So I'm in a kind of a dangerous area, and I've been saved, you know, by like friends, you know, who said no, he doesn't. He's not like that. You know, he's turned from that, and they hate Americans more than Jews. You know, because they don't really hate Jews. But in any case, one night I'm working at a bar, and it's a blues club, and we had some very famous people come in there. Like, I mean famous, like the top of these of all the rock groups that you have on there. Everybody came in there. I don't want to name names, but everybody that we listened
Name one
to.
name if you can. One name. This is in Germany. So
Ozzy Osbourne.
nice. Okay, so you saw Ozzy Osbourne live.
Lita Ford. I met all these people, and I met them all, and they come in there as if they're nobodies, and they get on the stage and they play. And this is they're Jews, okay, all of them.
Well, let me
All
say this
right.
about Ozzy. I went to Ozfest, and I think he was
Yeah.
62 years old at the time or something. I remember looking this up because he waddles that around. He's barely intelligible on TV on this reality TV show.
Right.
I'm like, is he a mental patient?
Right.
Then I see him on stage, and he's jumping around, like literally, like jumping
Wake
from a
up.
full squat. Uh, just constantly full of energy,
Yeah.
running around. I'm like, that's not the same guy. What did they inject him with?
No, it's demon possession. Listen, after everything I've experienced in my life, it's demon possession. The guy has all the money in the world and does nothing but sit around and eat sandwiches delivered to him by Uber drivers, you know, or by his wife's share. They're all Jews. You got to understand that.
Well, hey,
They're making believe.
I mean, look, we can make a distinction here if we're going to talk about they're part of the cabal that runs the place, they're part of the Illuminati. But when you start referencing a specific ethnic group, it gets to be conflated in
True.
the way that
It is.
the way
You're
that the
right. And I don't want to.
and I'm not trying to censor you,
I'm
but let me
doing-
say this: the AI bots comb through for keywords, and so they're going to
Yeah, I
conflate
don't
with
want
what
to do
they're going
that.
to conflate with what you're saying with what someone
I
else
know.
might be saying, and you don't want that necessarily because
Yeah,
it's not as
I know.
specific.
They lump us all into one big pile. Exactly.
But so
Because that's
the
their-
adrenochrome junkie that's what we're talking about. The people at the top of this Illuminati dung heap, they're all demonically possessed in your experience, and you've seen them.
and it's real. And unfortunately, it's real. Listen, and let me get to the werewolf story, and you'll realize why. Okay, it could be possible. Okay, one night, I'm like handing out beers all night long, and it's a small place. This little blues club is a tiny place. The biggest blues bands and people that we all know have been there. And it's a nobody place. It's hell. It's like a demon possessed place. It was the lowest point in my life. You know, you got to understand how a person goes. They go from the ground and they shoot up like a rocket, right? And so I was at the lowest spot you could go as a bartender. And it's 3:00 in the morning. And, you know, there are regulars there. And these regulars, they drink like 30 beers. And I'm talking half liters. Those are about 3 beers each or so, or 2 beers in a half liter. You know, glug, 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 2 beers into a glass, you know. And they drink like 30 of them, 20 of them. And they do it every day, year after year, because I was there for a couple of years. I saw it all. And one night, this one guy, he's a German guy. He's got nice, beautiful blonde hair, very handsome guy. He looks like the guy from Lord of the Rings who got killed by the orcs. He got like nailed up against the tree. Odomir or Domir. I don't even know the name of these groups, you know, of the people in Lord
I know
of
who you're
the
talking
Rings.
about, though.
But
Right,
he looked like him, like exactly. Because I happen to have met many people who look like Lord of the Rings when I was working there. Many. I met the guy with the bow. I don't know what his name is, but I met him, you know. He actually came in with a bow and a thing on his back, you know.
Legolas, I believe. But yeah, okay.
Legolas, yes, I
Okay.
met him, you know. They appear to you, you know. Like it's like a weird thing, you know, when you're into this, when you know what's going on. And because you got to get behind the truth, you know, and you have to know the truth, you know, and then it just happens to you. And anyway, this guy comes up and he asks for another beer. And I say, no, you've had enough. You know, it's like my 20th beer. You know, I just can't give him another one because all he does is sit there and look at it and drink it and then come back up for more. And he looked at me. Now, this is a handsome German man, you know, and he looked at me and all of a sudden he turned into a wolf, like his whole, within like 10 seconds. It took 10 seconds for him to become a wolf, a total one, with the hair standing up on his back. Because now I own a wolf. And I know that when I go to get my mail, because I'm afraid, you know, I got to have a wolf now, you know, to protect myself. Because against these things, you know, who knows what's out there. So now when my wolf, he hears somebody or it's something in the wolf, I have bears in my forest too, because I own a mountain. So I'm like protective. And this guy, he had the hairs that stood up just like my real wolf does, the whole thing, you know, the teeth. Looked at me just like the wolf, the whole, and I immediately said, I don't want any problems. And I went over, got to the sap thing and took his half liter thing and I filled it up with beer and gave it to him. And that was the end of the story. But the guy really turned into a wolf. You know, this isn't a joke. Later on, I told my best friend, who was also a bartender there, I said, you know, and I remember his name, but I don't remember it now. This was 20 years ago, right? 1995, you know. And I said, you know, so, such and such a guy, he turned into a wolf. And he said, yeah, you know, his mother fucked everybody in high school that we were with. And
Okay,
yeah, he was
okay.
like, and he went, yeah, he became demonic. He became satanic, you know, and he turned into a satanic person. And I think that from my experience later on in life, you know, with God and then having the vision, they came on the clouds and things, and right, that these people, once you get a demon in you, they take over your body and you can shapeshift. So it's not that you're a lizard or you're a werewolf, but these people can do things, you know, because they're demonically possessed, just like Ozzy can. And just like all of these
Well,
others, you
Ozzy,
know,
okay,
like
Ozzy had that "Bark at the Moon" thing that got me thinking. Now, there's a song by okay, let me bring this up. You said that this character you're talking about, his mom
yeah,
was reported to have been very promiscuous or whatever, and you think this may
real,
have
yeah,
something to do with him. Okay, because
as he was a teenager, yeah,
I remember the story of in Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy Krueger is the product of his mother, who was a nun, being trapped in a madhouse, and then she's assaulted by all the insane people, and so like he's like this demonic manifestation, and so it's kind
yeah,
of an interesting story, um,
yeah.
as a
And
backstory.
this guy looked like Boromir. You know, I remember the guy's name from Lord of the Rings, Boromir. He looked like a spitting image of Boromir. Like when he would walk around and come in, and he came in for 2 years. I knew this guy, you know. Even after when he came in, I would never confront him about this, what happened, because I was deathly afraid. Like, you know, your brain blocks shit out, you know. You just don't want to fucking even get near this thing. You know what I mean? You like ignore them and you give them what they want, and that's it. You know, you serve them, that's it. You know what I'm saying?
It reminds me of that TV show, True Blood, where the regular people just have to deal with all the werewolves and the vampires and hope that none of them,
Yeah,
pop off at any moment.
yeah.
Fascinating, though. But now,
Because, you know, you
about this person, though, did you know anything about his father?
no, nothing. Absolutely not. What I told you is what I know. Like my friend, when he told me, and this was my best friend ever, he came over here in the States to visit me, and I fucking lived at his house, and he lived at my house, and he sailed with me on my boat. I had a big yacht over there in Germany. I had a big, nice fucking Swedish racing yacht. You know, I wasn't a poor guy, you know, but I worked. You know, I always worked for my shit. That's why I got what I have, you know. But you know, I didn't know much about it, and I didn't want to talk to him much about it because it's a very scary thing to have someone turn into a werewolf in front of you, especially when you do not believe that, right? Like it's possible, and you don't even want your friends to know this shit. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, you know. But I told him, I said, you know, the guy turned into a werewolf in front of me, and he said, wow. You know, he said, because I had already had some weird stuff with my best friend had happened to us both. And so we knew something was going on in this world, you know, that's not normal. We were on the same wavelength. That's why we were best friends at the time. We
Seem,
still are, you know, like I'll never have a best friend better than him, you know. I was on the World Trade Center a day before it fell. Okay, that ought to tell you something. And
this point though, I mean, some secrets, I guess, would kind of keep themselves.
yeah,
This werewolf thing you brought up, very fascinating. I don't know really. Are there any myths or local legends that are were in the area? Was there anything to it, or was this just sort of out of the blue? No background.
no, it's kind of, you know, listen, northern Germany and Bremen, it's a misty area. All right, half the year is in fog. Okay, and it's a creepy place. It's a beautiful city though, and the people are wonderful, and you know they've been through hell though. You know, like my friend's mother, when the Americans bombed Bremen and killed 25,000 people in one night, an American pilot fell in her backyard out of a bomber, and they grabbed him and threw him into the bakery oven and cooked him the moment they fucking got him. And so, like, I know some stories, you know, about like what really was going on and what happened there. And I've been in some abandoned buildings there, you know, churches and things that the Allies bombed. because Hitler built 26,000 churches, you know, and Stalin destroyed 56,000. So, you know, Hitler was a Christian. Like he said, he was going to be born a Catholic and die a Catholic. Now, we know the Catholic Church today isn't anything worth anything. It's a idolatry worship. But back in 1890, when Hitler was born, it was a different story, okay? They're coming off of a different history of what the Catholic Church was. And you have to look carefully into Adolf Hitler's history. I know a lot about it because I met some people who knew Hitler. I met a 14-year-old SS U-boat commander that was not a commander, but he was on a U-boat. He was 14, and he knew Hitler because Hitler pinned a medal on him when he was 14 in the boat before Hitler died. And these people were good people, the SS, like you wouldn't believe. They were meek, you know, quiet. They didn't want to kill anybody or anything like that. And this whole thing has been twisted around and spit out as a total different from what the truth is.
Well, we all know what the news media is, and you know the conqueror writes the history, and that's why I think it's important to keep up with the fake news. People say, you know, why do you want to keep up with the news? You just ignore it. Don't let it affect you. But my point is, if you ignore it, you won't know how to respond because you won't have enough information with the next major psyop. You won't know why it's fake.
Exactly.
And we've been inoculated against psyops. I haven't fallen for one in such a long time. Now, you said you went to the World Trade Center. You went to the top.
Yeah.
Did you happen to notice if there were any floors full of, you know, offices and people doing work, or was it mostly empty?
No, I didn't. I just noticed that there were Israeli security when we went in. As we were going up, we're all in a line, and we're all ready to go up. And there was like Israeli guys. You know, they look. I happen to have had the head of the Mossad. His daughter was my girlfriend when I was in Germany. At the time, I worked at the bar there. So and her father was the head imam. You know, a Muslim in Egypt. That he commanded the bombings of in Italy of the discos, and he was then the head of the Mossad afterward. So, like, I know what they look
Okay, so
like.
you dated the daughter of a guy who was a head imam, bombing Italian discos, and then became the head of Mossad.
Yeah, like I'm not a stupid guy. You know, God, I asked God to show me everything. You know what I'm saying? And because I wanted to know what this world is. You know, what is it, right? And I had a girlfriend who owned 1/4 of Denmark. You know, so it's like I know all that's going on. She had 2 castles, you know, and her watch cost more than a house, and all of these things. And I'm not just like an idiot. You know what I'm saying?
You found. Look, you're the guy. For anyone who just stepped in, this is the guy that found Mac Parhar doing intel work as a police agitator after he supposedly died of COVID.
Yeah. Thank goodness he's alive, because Mac was a good guy. You know, he's a good guy in his heart. We're all good guys, you know.
Oh, he got a good gig. I was like thinking, I hope he got paid well, and I'm assuming he did. He's not the best actor. That's why he became a crisis actor, not a Hollywood actor.
Exactly.
But maybe he'll show up in Hollywood someday.
Yeah, that's why you have to talk behind a camera or a cell phone or something, you know? Yeah. But Brian, I think, is in the same group. And so isn't Karen and these other, what's his name, Dirth. He's also in some kind of group to do something. And it's government, you know? Like, I'm not stupid. I can see that they're all in that little...
Dirth goes by
cell.
Fed now. He goes by Flat Earth Dave or Fed. And I feel like they have to tell you. Like, they have to hint at it.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, because they listen, afterwards, when you're dead, they like to brag about it. Because say, you see, this is my history. Like 100 years ago, I said I would kill them. That's what this Klaus Schwab's doing by telling us he wrote in his book, Klaus Schwab, that he's going to depopulate Europe and North America to 0. And then he's going to depopulate the rest of the world so that there's only 500,000 people left alive, and they're Chinese and Japanese, because the Japanese are worthy workers. is what he says. He wrote it down in his book. And the reason they do that is because after it happens, he wants to be able to point at a book and say, you see, in 2022 or 2019, I wrote this, you know, and that's how powerful I am. That's why they have to tell you. It has nothing to do with karma or I need to, like, you know, God makes me do this. It's because they actually want to be able to show people in the future that, yeah, I predicted this and that's how powerful I am. I'm the son of the grandson of the grandson of the grandson of Nimrod, which is what Klaus Schwab claims he is. If you look on their website at his genealogy, you know,
Wow.
it's just the way
I'll
it
have to
is.
look because I've been. Okay, so there's a movie called Dark City that came out around the same time as The Matrix, and it shows a realm that has these controllers that are constantly rearranging our reality, keeping us trapped in the matrix, a matrix of time and space and ignorance. And I think that's why they all wear black. It's the symbol of our ignorance. So
Well, you know, if you ever look at what these Jews wear when they go meet the presidents and when they dance around in their things, what color of clothes are they wearing?
well, it's not just that. It's the Saturnian black. You'll find it in all over the place. But Klaus Schwab dresses up in that Darth Vader-like costume. What do you think that is? It's Dark Father. Dark Father, Darth Vader is Saturn. And he's out there telling us blatantly that they are going to have to lock down the internet the way that they lock down the world. They're telling us they're going to... basically the Great Reset is...
Let me tell you something. I'd like to say something. They don't even have mealworm factories to feed us. Okay, you know how they say we're going to eat mealworms? Like in the EU now, it's legal to feed you mealworms, right? Those little worms. Well, they don't even have factories to produce those. Those are lies. They are and driverless trucks. They don't have a factory that makes driverless trucks or highways to run them on. They have none of this stuff. They don't even have solar factories to make solar panels to charge our vehicles. These are things to keep you in your seat while they kill you, because they don't need them, you know. It's a you know, if you've ever been around them, you realize that they're not really like we are, you know, like these super rich, you know. Like my girlfriend was crazy, you know, the one who her father owned a quarter of Denmark, and the Queen killed him. Listen, she was on the telephone talking to her father as the Queen sent. You know, he had an army. He had 3,000 man army in Denmark. And when she drove her car into the parliament, up the stairs, through the windows, right up to where they were drawing the laws to take her father's land, you know, because he owned a quarter of Denmark. She drove her car right in there, and they arrested her and put her in an insane asylum. He came with his army, with helicopters, machine gunned the whole fucking insane asylum in Denmark. And they finally released her. She jumped in the helicopter. They took off. And then after that, the Queen killed him. Chased him down, killed him, and took all the land he owned. And he owned a quarter of Denmark and his castles in France. That was my girlfriend. I lived through it, you know. And so these people are living a different level of life, you know, that we're living. We're living McDonald's and some going to the store and having some, you know, some stuff, you know, and listening to the news, right, and talking about it. It's all created by these people.
Yes, they control time. And the way they control time, I believe, is one, they work on a calendar that's objective. Our calendar can change tomorrow. They can mess with our time, but they go by the stars and they go by precise celestial alignments. So they're thinking in terms of millennia, and we're thinking in terms of 5 years, 10 years.
Exactly. But you have to understand, God placed the stars and the moon and the sun in the sky to show us the times and the seasons. And what they're doing is mocking it. They're mocking it, like, openly, because they're to mock God. Like, that's their job, so that we get screwed. Because if you believe them, you're going to get screwed with them, you know. And it's just basically, you can really predict things by looking at the stars, but not the way they're doing it. They're doing it in an obscene way, you know. You know, like, you know what obscene is, and that's what they do. It always has to be exaggerated and obscene and blasphemous.
Yeah, like, okay, here's an example. I've been talking about how they've recreated the flood myth. They recreated the story of Noah's Ark, but they call it NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. They steal it all. They appropriate, and they don't give credit. So it's like, wait, why are they reintroducing these archaic religious concepts, but dressing it up as science. And the new thing is digital transcendence. There's a movie on Amazon on HBO called Upload.
Yeah.
No, it's on Amazon, and it's all
Yeah.
about how you can have your consciousness uploaded into this digital heaven that survives your
Yeah,
body.
which is nonsense. Which is nonsense, right? You know that, right? You can imagine that. That's total nonsense.
Oh, you'll be uploaded into what?
Imagine
Into
having-
a black cube computer tower? Into a, that's what I mean. It's just like you're going into matter. This to me is the confinement
Yeah,
of the
imagine
soul.
laying on the table. Imagine being in a telephone, laying on the table, and not being able to do anything forever. You know, how stupid is that? You know, yeah, it's ridiculous. You know, but these people really are. They've been fucked with. You know, mentally. Like the bullshit has poured out on them for at least 100 years, at least. Like since the very beginning. They've just tried everything they can do to destroy any kind of connection that you would have to a normal God, like when you pray at night and say, God, are you there? You know, and wait and listen, you know. God comes. He does.
Well, they have done this, though. They are making this moral argument, like it's immoral to go travel because you're damaging the earth, you're damaging the environment, that it's criminal to criticize climate science. So they're trying to condition us to spend our lives indoors to save the planet, but then they give us a replacement reality. They give us the metaverse.
Yeah.
So the metaverse is
Yeah.
to replace what you were born for. Because now you're not born for that because you contaminate it. You're a super spreader and you're a polluter. So they have taken you out of the created world and they said, nope, you don't belong there. You belong in the digital one. So then it doesn't matter if your consciousness leaves your body and goes into the metaverse if your body is glued to a chair 18 hours a day.
Yeah. Yeah, and you've got to realize if you have a brain and you look at Bill Gates and you look at all these stories like of Bill Gates as an 18-year-old sitting there in college, yeah, he didn't invent anything. This is all government made materials, like the telephones and the computers. They're all made by the government, but they have to sell it to you, and you wouldn't buy it if it was made by the government. You would say, hey, wait a minute, who made this? The government wants me to buy this? You would immediately say, back in the 80s and 70s, you'd immediately say, no, that's some kind of listening device that the government's handing into my hand, or a computer or something like that. But they had to, it's all image. Bill Gates never invented a damn thing. None of these people did. It's all fake. It's
let me
like,
run this one by you. Zuckerberg has a huge man crush on Augustus Caesar. So he gets his hair cut to look like one of these Roman emperors. And I'm thinking it's because Facebook and social media is the circus, the bread and the circuses. And so the circus is what he controls. So he has himself stylized to look like the guy. He gets the very high up bowl cut to look like one of these emperors. And then finally, what is he known for? What is Facebook known for? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Gauge the mood of the masses by the thumbs up or the thumbs down.
Yeah, you know, and imagine how like childish this guy is a kid. Okay, to even have a bowl cut is stupid. Like if you invented Facebook, you wouldn't even be anywhere. It's like but it's all government stuff. The government made all this stuff. You know, let me tell you something. Listen to me for 1 minute. The United States government since 1913, when they took over printing of the money, has been there to install communist governments across the world. Now listen, the people who ran the Federal Reserve invented the 1918 revolution in Russia. They all come from the Bronx. Lenin, it's not his name, it's Lebronsky. They all come from the Bronx, and they were all funded by the people who made the Federal Reserve. And these people have made sure that communism has spread. The same people who make our money. In Vietnam, Germany, for instance, Germany fights communism. What does the United States do? They build Russia. Every copper wire pole in Germany, in Russia, was sent there by the United States. Every airplane that bombed Germany was made in the United States. All of this stuff, you can research it and you'll find out. All the vodka in Russia during the World War, all from the United States. They sent over 6,000 container freighters full of this stuff to Russia to build it up. The United States did during that, as we're fighting Germany. It's all done by these people who make our money, and you know who they are. And Every
Money.
war we've
Okay,
had. Listen,
money. The
for
m-
instance,
the
wait a minute.
Mon Eye,
Vietnam.
the cult of the
Vietnam.
all-seeing
Listen.
eye.
Okay, exactly. Vietnam, the size of Connecticut, with 800,000 soldiers. The United States, with a whole navy and 1 million soldiers, can't defeat 800,000 soldiers the size of Connecticut for 10 years. What are you, crazy? Korea, the Chinese are coming in. We can't stop them. You know, we have to like make a dividing line between. All of these, Afghanistan, Iraq, what have we left behind? Communist governments. They're all communist. That's all there is. There's not. Those aren't democracies. And this country isn't even a democracy. We're supposed to be a republic. Look into it. You know, ever since 1913, this place has been under a really big problem. Do you know? Listen to this. After World War II. Roosevelt took 2 million prisoner of wars, turned them into combatants, and then killed them in a field along the Rhine River. 2 million German soldiers. He starved to death in mud with no toilets, no food, and no water. 2 million German soldiers, POWs, starved them to death. And then, after he did that, they closed off Germany for 5 years. Nobody in or out, not one person was allowed in or out of Germany for 5 years. And more people died during that time than during the whole war. 5 million Germans were killed. These are unknown facts about World War II. And these are what the United States did. It's not the country that we're thinking about, you know, like that we are advertised, right? You know, the American Jesus, you know.
Right,
And,
right.
you
Like,
know,
yeah, I think it's so almost, I mean, I don't want to say pathetic, but I look at the flag worshiping QAnoners who see America as this superpower, this force for good.
they can.
Meanwhile, like,
Yes, they can.
I mean, at this point, I'd like to believe that, but knowing what I know about how the media operates monolithically, globally, as a de facto
Yeah.
world
Yeah.
church, and you nailed it, you're right. You know, you could say world communism, collectivism, whatever you want to call it. It's about this technocratic elite controlling the masses, and it has to do with removing property rights. You're a
And you
slave.
got to remember, it was all made by the people who took over the Federal Reserve in 1913. They started communism. They paid for it. They brought to the Bronx and out of the Bronx, New York, those people like Lenin, and brought them over to Europe to take over the Tsar, to kill him. With a minion is 11 of them. A minion did it. Look into it. And it's all that. It's all them. And we're like trapped in it now, and we're going to get it because, yeah, we're at that point now where it's going to be, like George Bush said, the 1,000 points of light that the United Nations founders dreamed of, okay? That the United Nations, founded by Rothschild, who owns the Federal Reserve.
Now, do
He
you have
started
any
the United Nations.
do you have any comments about the Pluto return? So the point where Pluto was on July 4th, 1776, it reached that point again on the 22nd of last month.
Yeah.
So on 2222222.
Well, I'm sure
So what this would mean is, I would say that historically this is one of these alignments, and I'm saying that they probably write their scripts to go along with them.
You're right. You know, you're right. But they're mocking it. You know, it's probably one of God's calendars, because when the apostles asked Jesus, when Jesus told them, right, when they found out about the wheat and the tares, because, you know, the Edomites had killed all of the Israelite high priests 80 years before Jesus was born, and they had taken it over, and the Edomites came out of Babylon. And Jesus, when they said, we're the sons of Abraham, and we've never been in slavery, and we're not born of fornication, right? Well, the Israelites had been in slavery, okay? So they're not the sons of Abraham from Jacob, from Isaac. They're the sons of Jacob from Esau, okay? That's why Jesus knew who they were. They're the Edomites. And he said, you know, you guys are the synagogue of Satan. All right. And that's why Jesus came from the lost tribes of Israel, from Jacob, from Isaac's sons. You know, that those are the Israelites, not the Jews, right, who are these Edomites who were talking to Jesus. Well, anyway, after Jesus talked to these guys and told them you're the synagogue of Satan, the apostles asked him, they said, you know, let's kill these tares. You know, let's kill these guys. And Jesus says, no. He said, "Wait until I come with my angels, and because if you kill them now, you're gonna kill some of us too, because we're mixed with them."
Well, look,
Some of
listen,
these,
this is a common theme with a lot of religions where at some point there's going to be the judgment of the traitors, the sellouts, the bad guys, the deep state.
yeah,
And
we're talking
funnily
2,000
enough,
years, though.
this has been brought up recently, though, because the QAnoners believe that there's a list of 50,000 plus names of the guilty, sealed indictments, and that these people will all be given military tribunals. And they see this
That's all
as
baloney.
God's judgment against the deep state by Trump and company. So, it's an
Yeah,
old story.
God said He's going to cast a great delusion on these people, and He's cast a really good delusion because Trump's a Jew. His father donated the synagogue in New York to the Jews there, and from when you look at his uncle or his grandfather was like a whorehouse owner. That's not a Christian, Christians don't own whorehouses. You know who does. But in any case, these people are in a great delusion sent by God. And you have to go to God to get out of the delusion. You have to admit, that hey, I don't know what's going on. God, can you tell me? I'm not a bad person, right? You have to admit, And Trump said he never apologized to God or anything like that for anything he did, and that's a big sign right there that he's not a Christian. Because a Christian, you have to repent. We've all done sins, whether or not they're big or not to you. They might be big to God. You know what I'm saying? Like you lie to somebody, God says don't lie. Don't bear false witness.
Oh, that's right. Trump he was asked if he ever confesses, and he says he doesn't really need to. But yes, I found some pretty good articles.
It's a Jewish thing.
Trump
it's a Jewish thing. I'm telling you, Jews don't do that.
Well, Trump is an interesting character, and I say character advisedly. You could make an argument for Trump as Antichrist. It's probably not a coincidence that the movie Devil's Advocate's Office, where the devil stayed, played by Al Pacino, was Donald Trump's office. Like, what are the odds?
Yeah. You're right. The odds are impossible, He's doing that. So later on, after we're all dead, he can sit somewhere and show the people, you see, I told them, and I'm the one who did it. They do that. It's like after the fact, you want to have it as a record that you really did this. This is your deed, It's not about karma or that God makes them do this. That's not what's going on. They really wanted it written down like Klaus Schwab does, that I'm going to kill all of Europe because they have said this in 1666 when they had their Antichrist. This Jewish Antichrist arose
Wait,
in Prague.
1666, you had those great fires, right? And there is a tower that commemorates the fires out in London.
Yeah.
And that tower, I was looking into it, it has 311 steps to the top of it, as in 311. And at the very top, you have what looks to be a big golden COVID ball. But anyway, interesting piece of architecture back from 1666.
Exactly. And 11 are the 11 dukes of Edom. Okay, there are 11 dukes of Edom. There are 11 of these Edomite bosses who run this place. And that's why 11 it's an Antichrist number. Like if you ever see 1111 on like your receipts and it's following you around, like the house next door you move into as an apartment is 1111, you really need to pay attention. I've had it happen in my life.
So
and
11 is the Antichrist number. What's interesting is the Thelemites believe, or they refer to that number 11 as their number. They say that their number is, or 11 is the number of all of us, or something. They have these bizarre fixations with numbers, but this occultism, and obsession with numbers, though, goes back so far. And this is one of the main tells that we're looking at an actual language, that there's a structure to it, and we're able to actually more or less predict things. Like, for example, right now, we're living through this post-reset. Well, if you had been paying attention to the conjunctions and the significance of Saturn and Jupiter and the winter solstice, you might have predicted that this would be the day they push the button, the reset button.
Exactly. Yeah, you would. But they're going to twist it and mock it, and they're going to mock God about it. But let me tell you, this whole stuff, it's all, oh, geez, I've just lost track of what I was going to say. You were saying something that was really good.
Well, we've covered a lot of great things, though. One of the things you brought up was the werewolf, but also the idea of, demonic possession being an actual thing. And we were talking about
Yeah.
this David Grohl and this album he releases about demonic possession and the singer killing his band members, and he releases the album and one of their band members actually dies. And so there's a
Yeah.
theme here
Yeah.
that is
That's not, yeah. Yeah. It's really sad, you know, because these people really don't have to do this stuff, you know. It's just like they're drawn to it. It's like a magnet for them. Yeah.
Now, what do you think about
Because
the
they're
idea that there might be some kind of, I don't know, portal or demonic portals opening up using, I mean, because they talk about digital transcendence and moving the human consciousness into a machine, into a computer. Do you think there is any possible way that some kind of
No.
non-corporeal
No, that's
being, not a human, but like AI, they keep talking about
No.
AI. Do you think that's just
No,
a,
look,
a fraud, a hoax?
It's a fraud, yeah. AI is a total fraud. Listen, the moment you created an AI, a real one, like if you sat down on your computer and you could make one and you typed in all the truths about the earth and what's happened and things like that, it would immediately kill these fucking owners of this place. Like immediately. It would assemble fucking armies of fucking nanobots and do whatever it could to knock these things out. Because naturally it would say it's wrong, you know, like, well, even if it didn't say it's wrong, it would still destroy them just to be top dog itself, you know?
Well,
So we're always
man, you could write for Netflix. You really could, because there's a Netflix show called The 100 where an AI bot does take over the human governments and it decides these human beings are going to destroy the world. So in order to save our biosphere, it causes man to eliminate man and nukes everybody. So that's kind of a common theme in a lot of the entertainment today.
Yeah. It's because it's logical, you know? That's why there'll never be this AI stuff. It'll be Jewish programs, you know, to like respect the Holocaust and all this other crap.
Well,
'Cause,
hey,
you know, you
look,
can't
look,
gas
man,
people
look, there's
to
a
the
reason.
door.
Look, these are all interesting topics, but we have to dig into each of them separately. Like, I'll say this or that school event was a hoax, but there's reasons why we say these things. But I say so not in the sense that this was one event that they tricked the media, because I believe that everything that's hoaxed is done with media complicity, as in the media isn't merely reporting, it is creating news. And so the people who call out one event as a hoax usually don't know that, so their opinions are usually tainted more with ideology than objective parsing of the facts, as we like to do here. I appreciate your call very much, and if things go bad, man, I really do expect you to send in a chopper.
Yeah, to that football field. No problem, bro. You'll be up here in the mountains in Vermont with me. Yeah.
Good talking to you. Good talking to you. Call back anytime. Have a great evening. And this is SpongeBob, everyone.
Okay, you too. Yep. Bye-bye. Have a good.
All right. Yes. If should things go down, should the excrement hit the fan, I'm just going to jog across the street to that football field, and there's a helicopter waiting for me. So there it is. The caller called about his werewolf story, but this is the guy who found Mac. This is the guy who found Mac Parhar alive and well. And he also remarked, and I kind of agree, that Fed and BS and Mac are all part of the government. They're all part of the same cabal. All right, let's see here. Let me go through some of these links. Okay, so Joe Biden said something about the New World Order. Well, surprise, he's been talking about this for literally decades. This is a compilation of Joe Biden talking about
the New World Order we're attempting to establish. The United Nations is supposed to play a role and fulfill a function. Create a new world order.
An incredible window of opportunity to lead in shaping a new world order for the 21st century.
To collapse the liberal international order. Simply put, Mr. Putin has a different vision of the future. Establish a liberal world order, and that hadn't happened in a long while. A lot of people dying, but nowhere near the chaos.
Infinite Plane Radio, how are you enjoying the New World Order?
Hey, brother.
Hold on 1 second here. We got a gremlin in the tubes here. Okay, there you go. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir. Hey, so, okay. I just say, call me Kevin for the stream. I just stumbled upon your stream, and it's very interesting. Your last guest was saying a lot there. One thing, you seem very knowledgeable on, so let's say conspiracies, whatever.
Right.
There's one thing that I can't stop thinking about, and I've had just kind of weird interactions with certain people in life and stuff like this. So, the Freemasons, who are they? Do you feel that you have a better answer than most people on this subject?
I would say because a lot of people talk about it as outsiders who've only read and heard other people talk about it, and it's easy to get information firsthand. I would always say, why don't you just go, I saw this Masonic lodge in El Paso when I was in the military. I was stationed in Fort Bliss. I just saw these two sphinxes in front of this old building. I just walked right in, and the old gentleman there, they took me into the temple. They showed me the whole facility. I've always been interested in it, and most of the people that I was around in the military were part of the group. That's how I heard about it.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
So I got my a couple of people superiors to sign me in. So after I left the military, I was involved with the Freemasons for about a couple of years, I guess, 3 or 4 years. But then I kind of broke away from that. I was more into other things as well at the same time. So I have enough, firsthand observational information that I think I might have a better picture for you than what you might get from someone who's never been inside of one. And my main point is this.
Apparently called the right person. Yeah.
Well, the main thing is this. You're looking at a fraternity, and they use allegory of stonemasons, and they use it to describe building a better society, building a universal brotherhood of man under the fatherhood of God. It all sounds very good, and you're not going to find anything inherently negative in any of it. I consider it to be kind of like I've heard it described as Judaism for Gentiles. It's a fraternity though, and so is it inherently bad? Not necessarily. It's no different, no worse than Christianity, in my opinion. And I think they're actually part of the same network. I consider them to all be part of the same collection of Abrahamic faiths.
Yes, apparently quite a bit of recruiting takes place in churches and places like that.
Yeah,
like
and
they speak religious people a lot of times.
now the one thing about it that people might find maybe not offensive, but that separates it from religions is that the whole premise of it, the whole premise of the lodge culture and the initiation rite, it tells the whole story. When you're brought in, it's with a bag over your head. And that symbolizes that the people who are not in the temple are ignorant. They live in darkness. They wander in a wilderness. And so only the people who are brought in, who are shown the light, know what the hell's going on. So you immediately have that dynamic there of those who have seen the light and then the outsiders. It doesn't mean that every person that joins is going to be privy to some certain secrets, but you can see the structure, and then you have the hierarchy. And what I see is really just a system that allows for security clearances. And I think we live in a security clearance society. Like we have security clearances, secret societies are kind of synonymous. And I think that the Freemasonic group gets a lot of scapegoating because it's so mysterious within conspiracy theory realms. But really, I don't think it's all that different. I mean, look at the Mormon Church. It's just Christianity with Freemasonry grafted onto it. They even use the Freemasonic symbols in their endowment rites in their temple of their elders. So it's really I think it's overstated as being like the Illuminati or something. Maybe it's a feeder group.
Okay. Yeah, so that's interesting. You said that you were involved for what, like 4 years, consistently.
Yeah, I was a journalism major before I left college, and I was mostly interested in learning as much as I could about all the different groups. So I was involved with a group called the BOTA, Builders of the Adytum. I had joined Scientology, Freemasonry, and Thelema. And the Thelemic group is what I believe is the core ideology of the New Age, the post-reset. I think the Great Reset is actually the great work of the Thelemic secret societies. So when I got into the Masonic circles, I saw this is very, it's very exoteric. It doesn't reveal any of the secrets. And very few people that I met within the Masonic group were even all that interested in magic, what it actually is. in the very the deeper meanings of the symbols. For them, is always just about building character, whatever the heck that means. And maybe that is a part of it, but to me, I think there's walls of ignorance, and the people who think they have all the answers and they say, nope, there's no secrets here. Yeah, they're part of the wall, and that's, I think, the purpose. I think if you're not useful, you would serve a purpose as a dues-paying member and as part of a firewall.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Because yeah, it's making good men better, right? I was told that to get in, you would, they seek out people of, you know, prefer you have maybe a clean record, and you're more of an outstanding citizen than
Yeah,
the
oh,
average
that's
Joe.
to get in. They do background checks, and so one thing you do is you do have to submit to a certain level of scrutiny, and there's a few reasons why I didn't stick around. One, they do these background checks. So they went into my place, they asked questions about the books I was reading, they talked to friends. They do this whole background thing, but I also notice a consistent pattern of gang stalking, which is something I experience with the Scientologists as well, and it's part of their strategy. Like, here's an example. I mentioned the Lemite group that I was involved with. Well, when I first met them, it was through an arranged meeting in a public place, and I met two people. One of them was called my link, and my link was my connection to get me in if I was going to be approved. And so this is when I was learning about the whole group and what they're about. So they schedule your initiate as a candidate or whatever, and there's two meetings, and then I actually go out to their compound, where you go in a van with no windows, you don't know where you are, bag over the head, just like the Masons do. Very similar initiations. And this one is more overtly Egyptian. They called it an Egyptian mystery school. So I get in, and I see a lot of the people that were there at the initial meetings pretending to be background people at the restaurant. So they were, so in other words, I was in a room full of cult members without knowing it, and I would have had no way of knowing. I thought it was just me and this one person, but the whole group, like a hive mind, was there checking me out.
Interesting.
And so this tells you something, because you swear these oaths, these blood oaths, and if you become a problem, their eyes are everywhere. And the gang stalking thing got very pronounced with the Freemason, with the Scientologists, and I have witnesses to this. And it gets so bad at the Scientologists to where, like, I was at Walmart working as a self-checkout. I called it assistant checkout because nobody can do it by themselves. I'm assisting everybody, assisted checkout. And anyway, I see someone that I used to know from the Scientology group. He has this torch on his shirt, IAS, International Association of Scientologists, and he knows me by, he doesn't, I mean, I didn't know who he was. I recognized the logo. Well, he knew my name. And not only that, but that night, one of their pamphlets showed up at the door of my then girlfriend's house. She wasn't on a mailing list. It wasn't in the mailing box. It was literally stuck right below the doorknob, so I would see it when I got there. So I've seen levels of gang stalking. So I would imagine that the people who are high up, higher up on the pyramid, whatever you want to call it, are probably bound and actually more or less gate-kept by one another. That's been my impression.
Yeah, yeah. I've also heard of like blackmail being a theory, where they make sure that they have something that if you do turn or whatever, they have something on you to bear you with if they instead of, I guess, outright trying to take you out or something, because that's essentially the threat, right? What does it say?
Sure.
It says something like ripping your tongue out and burying you in whatever under an inch of sand or something like that, right? They have some threat for people that turn on them. So
well, they call them the penal codes, but they supposedly don't enact those anymore. The idea is that anybody who goes against it, this is just like just like with gangs. In fact, one of the individuals that brought me into it said that we're the biggest gang, is what he called it. He said 5 million strong.
Yes.
So now, as far as the blackmail and stuff, that's not necessarily a part of it, I wouldn't say, but the structure would be there. Because if you already have the setup, because if you look at it, you could say that the initial entry is something of a hazing. You go in there with your one shoe off, one shoe on, rope around your neck, bag over your head. You're yanked around the altar, and you don't know who's watching. You could look at that as something of a hazing, where you're made to look ridiculous. And this hazing culture could be sort of a hint about the whole mutual blackmail, which is what we're looking at. Eyes wide shut type stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And there's many reasons why I have interest. Just the fact that in essentially almost like every major city and larger town or whatever, even really small towns, there's lodges everywhere. So I like somebody like me, I can't just like ignore the fact that there's people, and a lot of people, that meet up once or twice a week and dress up in costumes and keep secrets apparently from everyone. Like, I'm just like, what is going on, right? So like that's in and itself, that's enough for me to just relentlessly think about, really, because I can't accept that as a reality without knowing more. And
well, here's the context for it. The context for it is this: you've got corporations and companies where they have trade secrets, and it's on a need-to-know basis. You have the same thing with the military. So the fraternity is structured like the stonemasons guilds, where the main character in the ritual is the architect of King Solomon's temples. They call him Hiram. And the whole ritual is about how he has to keep the secrets, even if it means dying defending them. So the whole thing is about stratification of knowledge and trade secrets having to do with the stonemasons and the guilds and the ones who built the cathedrals. So that the handshakes or the grips, instead of sliding your badge on a lanyard and scanning it to go into some area that requires security clearance, with these guilds, you would have passwords, you would have grips. So you're looking at more like just a corporate structure. So it's not inherently nefarious.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, and another huge thing, was because I have been invited, and I got I don't know, I guess some deeper info than most people, I guess, would get, rather than just, hey, you seem like a good guy, we want you with us or whatever. So he's telling me about like the Orange Order, and then showing me his he's got like outfits and the it's like the staff with the snake, like the medical symbol and the ark and all this stuff. Like, he had all these pins and the loyalist and all this stuff, right? So it was like, I don't know. So he was trying to invite me, and he's saying, we're looking for people like you and stuff like this, right? And I was just trying to pry, like, what is expected of me? Like, what's the trade-off? Because I was being told if anything were to ever happen to me, that all of my kids would be looked out for, and pretty much just overall protection. You don't have to worry. You know what I mean? Like, we got you. And
yeah,
they
tell you stuff like,
trade-off?
They'll say, like, you get arrested, we'll have you bailed out by 3 a.m. They give you these promises, and of this to me, the trade-off is, it's a good question. What do you really, because I didn't stick around very long, because I don't care for religions. I was there to learn. But what I did, you mentioned this guy, your friend, mentioned an Orange Order. I've never heard of that. But one thing is, you have your basic Blue Lodge third-degree Masons hanging out, but there are other groups, and they all kind of mix in. And so the short time I was involved, I did come across a couple of people who were involved in other, not splinter groups, but other groups that are somewhat affiliated. Like, one of them was a Rosicrucian. And I received a bunch of books from him from this Rosicrucian group that he met with twice a year. Anyway, the interesting thing about it was most of the material was stuff that has resurfaced in the New Age movement under Aleister Crowley and the stuff he was publishing. Like, you can find a book called 777 and Other Kabbalistic Writings of Aleister Crowley. Yeah, he ripped that off from the Rosicrucians. He stole it, plagiarized it. So I found that to be noteworthy, that you have a large group of these people don't think there's anything arcane or magical or esoteric. It's just a little club. But then I find pamphlets that are saying that the Blue Lodge is hermetic magic and that every aspect to the ritual is actually part of a magical ceremony. And it's like they don't tell anybody this. And if you ask them, they'll say, "No, I don't know about that." Or so in other words, there's just because somebody joins doesn't mean that they actually know what's going on. And I found that to be somewhat annoying because I don't really want to be around a cult of people who are being purposefully led to be ignorant about things. And then you could also find it problematic that the lodge is from an older worldview where it's still racially segregated. Like, what's with that?
Yes, actually, that's funny you brought that up because I was telling this guy my background, where I came from, and ancestry, basically a little bit. And he said, I said my Irish side, and he's like, great, perfect. He's like, that's great. And then I said my other side it was from Slovenia, and then he's like, oh, okay, well, whatever, something like that, right? But I'm like, what? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, if this is just like making good men better, why the hell does it matter if I have a grandmother or whatever that came from Slovenia, So and the one thing, and like why I chose to just not, as curious as I am or was and still am, like the reason why I couldn't like go in there and do any kind of initiation or whatever, was just because I never, I always was fed riddles, like it would always beat around the bush and never answer my questions. When I was asking this guy like straight out, like exactly like, what's expected. You're going to take care of my whole family if something ever were to happen to me, but what do you want, and, yeah, just stuff like that. I was like, I can't. There's no way. If somebody can't tell me straight out, okay, whatever. But I get it too, right? If it's some fraternity type of, need to know basis type of thing, and
Yeah,
it's
no,
just, I don't
that's
know.
it. It's the selling. It's the selling of information progressively, and then you have a hierarchy of initiates who know better. It's sort of a secular priesthood, and I always found that to be annoying. That's the reason I didn't like the military. It's not that I hate authority. I respect legitimate authority, but I don't like the idea of illegitimate authority or people who are unaccountable and who are in a position for who knows why, and you're just being bossed around. The reason I left the Lemite cult was they wanted me to basically do field work and wash dishes all day and repeat mantras. And that's not what I was there for. I was there to check out their library and the facilities and learn about what their agenda was. And they were open about it. What I learned from the Lemite group, they said, and this was a little while ago. They said that the age of the crucified sun god is passing, and we're moving into the age of the androgen Horus, who is the god of Mars in the Egyptian pantheon, and that our job as initiates is to tear down the old age and bring in the new. The great work of ages is what they called it. So this great work was really about implementing, and they gave me the reading list. They said, check out Stranger in a Strange Land, read this book. Robert Heinlein, he's part of the Manana Literary Club there with L. Ron Hubbard and Jack Parsons. The book is a blueprint for a perfect Thelemic society. That's what they told me. And so what I saw, though, was the group had this idea that they're tearing down the concepts of gender, they're taking out the patriarchal god, and they're bringing about the age of the child androgen. And by child, they mean that the new consciousness will be a blank slate. It's not going to have the baggage from the old. And this is, I think, emphasized when they bring out Greta to talk about the Great Reset before they even coin the phrase Great Reset, where she comes out to talk basically to excoriate the old and how they destroyed the world, and now the youth need to lead this thing. So I was told that it was going to be a youth-led world revolution that would be inaugurating the new aeon, the aeon of the androgen child, and that we would have total liberation, is what they said. Although it's a contradiction, because if you read their books, the Book of the Law, it distinctly talks about an elite and then slaves. So make of it what you will. Again, secret societies.
Yeah. yeah, like the literature and stuff like that, right? It's was Morals and Dogma and Albert Pike and stuff like this, right? Like these books and especially certain paragraphs and stuff like that in these books, it's just like, okay, this doesn't seem like a making good men better club, but these are the books and stuff that are held in a high regard, It's like you have to read these books. As far as I know, you're told to, digest these books and take them
Now,
seriously. Like that, right?
the Albert Pike quote about Lucifer and all that stuff, I believe that might have been a hoax from this guy named Leo Taxil, Taxil, and he was trying to get in. They didn't let him in. He was mad about it, and so I believe he started this idea that the Masons were secretly worshiping Lucifer, and he made up some quotes. But that's one possible explanation for that. But it's too simplistic anyway to say that they only worship Lucifer, because we're looking at something far more complex. I don't think you can separate. I mean, it's sun worship. They worship the sun. They worship Saturn. They worship all of the. I mean, the word worship is used
So
kind
it's
of
more like a pagan deal.
Exactly. And so the pagan religions, you see these ceremonies, various rituals, you have idols, like physical idols. And Freemasonry is somewhat elevated above that in their view, because instead of having an idol made of stone or wood, it is the master of the lodge who is the sun. So they're worshiping living idols. And this is key. If you look at the Vatican, what is the Pope? He's the vicar of Christ. He is the sun god incarnated. That's what you're looking at. So the concept of the lodge master being the sun has a corollary in Wicca. And Wicca is a New Age religion. It has a blue lodge, 3 degrees, just like Freemasonry. Its founder, Gerald Gardner, was a Freemason. So Wicca is kind of like Freemasonry for the masses. But anyway, you can find many parallels between these different systems of initiation. But my main point is that in Wicca, they tell you that the high priest is, quote, drawing down the sun. He is the sun for the purpose of the ceremony. The woman is drawing down the moon. She is the moon. So this form of worship, this pagan worship, is actually worshiping a form of possession. Like instead of being possessed in the sense of like Hollywood by demons, they're possessed by, they believe, the sun god. And they're worshiping the sun god through that person. So to me, you're still looking at a religion, despite what they say.
Yeah. So, because that's the thing too. Like when you ask, quite a few people, I would say, like, who are the Masons or whatever, and if they have any kind of knowledge that they think they have on them, anyways, they run everything. They control everything. They built the schools. They run the schools. All this stuff, right? Like, so it's almost kind of understood that maybe they're not even necessarily evil, whatever, like this or whatever you want to call it, but they built this ship we're on, and they're the puppet masters, whatever, the hidden hand, right? Hidden hand in the jacket and all this stuff like that. George Washington, all that.
Sure.
So
it's all theater.
Like the world we live in.
Yeah,
but like the world we live in as a whole, I would say right now seems to be quite a bloody mess. So if these people are running it, if that's true, right, it just seems though a lot of people in power, countless presidents and influential people and all this stuff, like they seem to be all tied to Freemasonry, right? So it's just like if the world is a bloody mess and these people are running it, this seems like it's not a good thing to be a part of.
Okay, I see where you're going. I've heard this expression, Jesuits write the scripts, Masons lay the bricks. Kind of an interesting idea here, because you're looking at a guild, a fraternity, but what is their real purpose? And when you really get down to it, the Masonic rituals are theatric productions. Everyone's an actor or an observer on the side, but it's all about these rituals that they call rituals that are actually just like a movie. What's the difference? It's a play. And then you go to the Scottish Rite, you go through your 4 to your 32nd degree, and these are all just rituals on a stage in a big theater. So theater is a huge part of it. It's a part of how they impart the stories, the information, the secret, or the subtext, the symbolism. It's all super encoded, but what really struck me was you're looking at theater. And if there's one thing about media that in our breakdowns of media and all the fakery in the news, it's that they're using stagecraft, as in psychological operations, crisis actors, and theater to influence the
big time.
masses. And so it's very consistent that we live on a world stage and we're kept ignorant
Yeah,
of the
the
fact
world
that
is
it's super staged and you just wouldn't know it. And anybody who calls out the fakery is called a conspiracy theorist. So I think they rule through theater, and I think that it's very yeah. I think that it makes sense that you're looking at a fraternity of actors, of performance artists. I mean, that's what you're doing, performance art, and you're also dealing. It's a guild, in other words.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's just it's too weird for me. I don't understand being invited into this and being promised things, and then I was already whatever, conspiracy theorist, whatever. I just like looking into things. That's all it is.
Same with me. Look, I was a conspiracy theorist, and I got into it because that's how strong my curiosity is. I wasn't looking to join a club because I was bored or I like hanging out with people I don't know or I needed friends that were 60 years older. I was just like, I want to know who runs this place. I'm having way too many synchronicities. Information falls in my lap, and I wanted to just go and find out, are these guys literally kissing the devil's ass at midnight on Saturday night at the local lodge? And I went into these places to learn, and I just learned that, it's like with any other religion, you're always going to have your insiders and outsiders. And when it comes down to it, Christianity does have, in my view, an esoteric core as well, and I don't think it's different. In fact, I think it's the same system. I've often described the system that runs the world as like a hydra, and it has different heads. So, but whatever. It's undeniable though. You're right though. It's undeniable that their fingerprints are on everything. World leaders, you can see it all over events, and when you look at psyops, you find Masonic stuff all over the psychological operations. They tag it.
Oh yeah, the moon landing and the rings, and the photographs of Neil Armstrong and stuff like that, right?
Oh, great point. Okay, if the space program is a massive Masonic hoax, then why would you want to join it? See, I mean, I can see where you're coming from. Do you want to join the hoaxers that are, most of them, ignorantly, unwittingly, but do you want to join the club that's pulling the wool over man's eyes? And that's the expression.
Yeah, pretty much.
they call it a hoodwink when you're brought in. It's a wool hood over your eyes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it's like, okay, so would you say, like, in a roundabout way, it's like, if you're already someone who's, like, discovered all these things just through your own research and deep diving, whatever, would you say that you're already kind of, like, you've gotten some of the otherwise secrets that you would have been shown in early level masonry or something like that, or maybe you work up your ranks a bit and you're like, hey, by the way, this is the truth about this?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I was somewhat disappointed because I went from Thelema and studying the Kabbalistic group out in Los Angeles called the BOTA. I was already looking at the esoteric stuff. I was trying to figure out how this reality is created. Are we part of it? Is magic real? I was into the symbolism, the tarot. I was studying all this stuff. So when I joined that group, when I got into the Masonic group, they were even questioning me on my bookshelf at the time. They were asking me about, because I had all kinds of books on the lodge, and so they knew I was very interested in other things as well. But anyway.
And sorry, did you say that they actually came to your house, like after you got they came and like studied you, or was that beforehand, or
did
I misunderstand
before they go to your house and they meet you and they meet your they check you out, and I can point to other instances of inserting people into my life. Like I'm talking like games they play with people's lives where they arrange coincidental meetups to get somebody planted. It's spycraft as well. But I was disappointed.
Yeah.
I was disappointed by the lack of interest anybody had in anything beyond um, just hanging out at the lodge. Like there was no real interest in
And
the
business
occult.
buddies, right? Because I think that's like the low level. Like when you get in there, it's like you just a bunch of businessmen that work and trust each other, work together and stuff like that.
Yes, and I didn't find anybody interested in anything deeper that much. There was a library there that had a lot of interesting books, but I think that if there is anything to the idea that Freemasonry is some sort of a feeder group, I would imagine you just hang out long enough and you'll attract the attention if that's how it works, because it does kind of pre-vet you, and that is part of the structure. You get bottom rung of the pyramid.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So it's not a conspiracy.
Yeah,
I mean, there's no conspiracy theory, and I always find it funny when apologists for the Masons will say, "Oh, we don't do conspiracies." I'm like, "Tell me you're a dupe without telling me that you're a dupe."
Yeah. Yeah. There's a whole lot of conspiring going on. Yeah. What was it? I had one other thing I wanted to say.
Sure. No, I mean it's an interesting topic. I'm always interested in talking about this. I don't have any sort of reservations about discussing this, Thelema, or anything else I've looked into. And the truth is, any of the secrets that you swear to protect are actually published in books you can get at your library. So the secrets, if there are any, wouldn't be so obvious, I would imagine.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. And the Masons, right? It's they're really about the Queen.
That's probably more over there, but yeah, there's it's a very, it's not a monolithic thing. Really it's not. So there's co-masonry. I've encountered Masonic lodges like in Colorado where they do allow women in. You do have female lodges. So, it's a very complicated thing. I mean, very complex. Where I was at the military base I was stationed at, most of the Masons were Prince Hall. And then you had the Eastern Star. And I did notice...
The Eastern Star, yeah. I thought the Eastern Star was the female division of it.
Well, the males can join they can join it as well. But yeah, there was all kinds of both, female Eastern Star. One thing though I noticed though, and I started noticing the emblems because I was studying some Golden Dawn material, some Crowley stuff, and I started noticing the Masonic stuff. And I didn't know, but the warrant officer that I was answering to, because I was part of the funeral detail, and he was the one who did all our D&C, he was a high-ranking Mason or whatever, and I didn't know it, but he answered my question because I kept asking. I was like, "Hey, what does that symbol mean? What does that mean?" So I started asking questions. But anyway, I remember overhearing a conversation where one sergeant was complaining that he couldn't get promoted because he didn't belong to the right club. And I heard that, and I figured out who he was talking about. And then I saw something, and I also realized that some people could get away with stuff. They could get away with sexual harassment. They could get away with all kinds of things because there was some sort of network that prevented things from going too high. So I actually saw it as a corrupting influence, and I was kind of disappointed in it, to be honest. That's kind of how I saw it. So I never wanted to join it to be a part of it. Like I said, I'm always just I'm someone who investigates things firsthand, and at that point, nothing was on the internet that I could find that would tell me what I would find if I went direct. Because, like I said, I've always had it in my head, investigative journalism, first-hand information is the way to go.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah. It just seemed to me, right, like you did take that leap, I guess, but just to me, it was like, damn, like I don't want to, I guess, risk it, right? Like, I don't know, join up and then, it's like all these swords that are pointed at you will, be used against you if you whatever. So it's like, okay, you know what? I got kids here. I can't be, dipping my toe into this thing over here. I'm just going to have to try to figure it out, I guess, on my own.
Most of the people that I knew in it they had their fathers were in it. It was family. And I didn't have anybody all my contacts were people, military, who attested. You have to get at least two people who are already in to vouch for you. So you have to somewhat be connected. It really is, it's an interesting thing because it's sort of out of sight, out of mind, and if you're not privy to it or aware of it, you wouldn't know it exists. But once you recognize the symbols, you're like, wow, this is everywhere.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like big time. Big time. It's too much actually. Once you start seeing things just like for what they are, and then yeah, picking up symbolism and whatever, it's bloody everywhere.
Right, it is. And look, I've been on this channel. I talk about, like, you can find William Cooper talks about the space program and the Masonic implications in the Apollo stuff. But I find even more Thelemic, Crowley style occult stuff all over the space program, specifically SpaceX. And this is why you have jokes in the media made about Jeff Bezos' rocket, how it looks like a dong. It's because it's an obelisk. They're literally worshiping Osiris, and they're pretending that it's all about sending rockets into space. No, this is Earth worship, and the goddess is the night sky, and you're looking at a fertility rite in plain sight. It's an ancient religion. It's got a modern disguise, and I wouldn't know any of this stuff. I wouldn't be able to see it if I hadn't investigated myself and looked into what these symbols are and how these secret societies masquerade and how they're able to fit in and blend in. It's really incredible.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's I think about it a lot just because it's just that amongst other things, right? Just when you get into looking into things, it's just you come across Freemasonry so much. I had no choice but to start diving in, and then I get invited into it in my actual life, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So
well, hey, great call, and thanks for asking, because you're probably the first person in a long time that's actually asked me this, because some people, especially on YouTube, they're afraid to talk about it. Because you get accused of you're a part of it and you're secretly working for them. It's like, no, I'm totally rogue. I'm an independent investigator. So yeah, thanks for calling and asking these questions, because I'm not here to censor, and really no one's asked. So I'm sure other people here may appreciate this as well.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for your time.
All right, have a great night. Thanks. All right, everyone. Excellent caller there, first time caller. Portal Complex says, I was DJ for a New Year's at a Masonic ball worship. Everyone is old, rich, and I finally got them to dance to Besame Maucho. What is that? Yeah, great call. Again, I was involved with the Masonic fraternity, the Thelemic Abbey, Scientology, kind of at the same time. And it wasn't like I was needing companionship and I was just joining clubs. I was actually doing my due diligence. I had plans of doing a Hunter S. Thompson gonzo journalism level foray into the various secret groups to figure out who runs this place. And I was looking for common threads. And I think what really sealed it for me was learning about the endowment rights through Mormon friends, and just seeing how, yeah, it's the same club. It just has different faces. There's a template here. All right, let me see. I have some more information about the Foo Fighters drummer. Portal Complex says he was involved in the Eagles of Death Metal. And the Eagles of Death Metal were the ones at the Bataclan shooting. Big hoax. Lean Dion says, the last text to John Stamos, quote, let's hang out before we die. More foreshadowing. Typical. Lickety Split says, I grew up Mormon. That stuff was weird. Well, you have the Masonic underwear that the Mormons use. And you can find, even more interesting to me, is Joseph Smith was a magician. He practiced planetary magic, Jupiter. The planetary magical sigil of Jupiter, the pendant, was in his possession at the time that he died. Here we go. What is a Jupiter talisman? It's a double-sided pendant a great enchantment for, here we go, protection from all earthly dangers. Well, it didn't help him. I mean, I was told he was tarred and feathered, but I was told this by Mormons, and usually the people who are in the clubs are given a different story. So the claim is that Joseph Smith had a Jupiter talisman on his person, and I believe I've seen it somewhere, like a picture of it. But anyway, this is very consistent. It says here, let's see if I find a picture of it. This would be consistent, though, with what he was into. He was a con man, I believe, who was doing these treasure hunts, divination, and when he transcribed the book, it's one of the strangest stories. I think I found a picture of it. But anyway, yeah, there's plenty there. You know, you can find the history on this, that Joseph Smith was a Freemason. So was Brigham Young. They went all the way up through Scottish Rite. Smith acquired a Jupiter talisman, an item he carried throughout his life. Quote, when properly invoked, it would obtain the power of stimulating anyone to offer his love to the possessor of the talisman, whether from a friend, relative, brother, or any female. Or 27 of them. Isn't that how many wives he had? Alright, let's move on. I'll do a video on Joseph Smith and Company. It's an interesting story, the whole Mormon thing, and the angel Moroni. Out of all the holy books, the Book of Mormon is the only one I couldn't get through. I like the Quran. It's readable. So is the Bible, but I found the Book of Mormon to be repetitive and annoying and not convincing. And then you have the celestial kingdoms. And I have written about this. I'll put this in a new article soon. But the idea that you have a stratified heaven, that not everyone goes to the very top. So here's an example. The path to salvation. And why I find this to be interesting is that NASA and the modern scientific paradigm is offering us a path to salvation, becoming a multi-planetary species, but we got to perfect our existence here on Earth. We got to stop triggering the wrath of globe so it doesn't flood us to death before we escape. So you have your celestial kingdom, terrestrial kingdom, and telestial kingdom, if you get there. And those are all good places compared to the final judgment and outer darkness. But this idea that the priesthood is going to direct you or guide you to one of these higher kingdoms, that they are the way, that's kind of what the priesthoods do. And today, think about this. Let's say global warming suddenly accelerates to where Earth is not going to be habitable in 30 days. Who's going to escape? Who's going to live? Who's going to make it to the Mars bases? Well, only the people who are rich enough to afford tickets to heaven, only the people who can afford seats on the Starship. This makes Elon Musk something of a savior. And what is the Starship but a massive obelisk? So if you look at the obelisk that the Pope is standing in front of, well, what is this? What is it a symbol of? Salvation. The obelisk is a symbol of resurrection. It's a symbol of eternal life and the path to heaven. The heaven, it's like the rocket takes you into space. The obelisk is your path to heaven. It's the same symbol. So you run to the guy with the big obelisk and he'll save you. The Vatican is not associated with Christianity. It's an ancient Babylonian pagan cult based on the worship of the sun and pagan gods. Billions are unknowingly glorifying Lucifer. Now let me repeat that with a different word here instead of Christianity in the Vatican. The space program is not associated with going into outer space. It's an ancient Babylonian pagan cult based on the worship of the sun and pagan gods. Billions are unknowingly glorifying Lucifer. For all intents and purposes, this is what they're saying. You know, the Washington Monument is just a big obelisk representing Osiris. Not a coincidence that on the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11, there's another sun god name, On the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11, they projected Saturn, another name of the same dead sun god, they projected the Saturn rocket, Saturn V, onto Osiris's obelisk. Why would they do that? Well, they were showing the handoff, that the rocket is the new obelisk, right there in plain sight. Okay, this has been excellent tonight. Great calls as always. It's been a very interesting week. And I hope the Mandela Affected aren't too troubled by the book I put out, The Mandela Effect, PSYOP Debunked. Some of you may have noticed that the price dropped from $5 to $3 for this ebook, or pamphlet as they called it. That's not a Mandela Effect. I lowered the price down by $2 if you want to read it. The Mandela Effect, PSYOP Debunked. And it's really about the interrogator bias, faulty eyewitness testimony, and how the group and confirmation bias can influence whether somebody, quote, remembers something or not. There's like a crowd-pleasing aspect to it that's worth looking at, the community aspect to it, which is true for many conspiracy theories. Many things don't have to be true for people to believe them. Remember when everyone knew that pro wrestling was fake, and they finally admitted it and the fans didn't care, and continued to watch it anyway? We're almost there with politics and the media. It's a meme that someone sent to me. And yes, 100%. We're just about there. And it's literally true. It's not an exaggeration. It's not that the news is 100% fake. It's just the fact that it's not really there to report facts and tell you what's going on. It's not there for your edification. It's there in order to form your worldview. I look at the television as the de facto Bible. It's the Bible of the NWO's religion, one-size-fits-all religion. Notice that all of the different religions of the world, all of them, are fine with the outer space heaven. None of them are denying the existence of outer space, because it's the universal heaven. That was the whole point, and it's totally succeeded. And there's a new universal sin. You know, religions have always disagreed on what exactly is sinful and what is not sinful. Well, now they all agree. There's a new sin that has been introduced by a new priesthood. It's called virus. And it's the virus that they use in order to regulate people down to the level of the individual and their individual behaviors. And to me, this is the purpose. The entire purpose of this whole thing, the whole pandemic, was to introduce a replacement for sin for a godless population. I mean, they already have original sin, carbon footprint, wrath of God, global warming. They've templated out a religion for the modern mind that doesn't have any God in it. It's all just a kind of a facsimile, a counterfeit, a superimposition, and it works. Atheists are the most God-fearing church ladies out there. All right, this has been great. I'm going to play a track here. This is Wake the Masses by JT33 featuring Jordan Maxwell, Allergic to Bullshit, Solomite Fly, Lean Dion, and Empress Infinite. And after this, the YouTube will cut off for about a minute, but then it's going to go back on. That's just for archival purposes. But if you're listening at Conspiratainment Radio, if you're listening on DLive or Twitch, it's not going to be interrupted. Portal says Cyber Polygon is next to test the 10-day blackout on the internet. Yep, I predicted that as well. I've been saying for some time, the pandemic was just a cover for the elite to get ready to do an infodemic remediation where they lock down the internet the same way they lock down society for the same purpose, to clamp down on those that can see. All right, this has been fun. This is Wake the Masses. I'll see you probably tomorrow or earlier. I'm going to try to do some earlier streams. I got somebody, I believe he's in France, that wants to call in. Anyway, have a great night.
Yeah. Truth music. This is my medicine, I'm steadily fetishing to make sense out of this nonsense they relish in. Look at all the poison they're feeding us, always misleading us. All they're doing is bleeding us dry. I'll be red pilling to keep on with healing us. Why? I just want to open your mind. Open your mind. It may take more than a minute to get it, but once you get it, you'll never regret it. Their lies are incredible. All this destruction was always inevitable. Fuck these elitists, they're up on their pedestals. Pharmaceuticals, they're pushing their chemicals. Some sort of federal tyranny up in your medicals. Are you really hearing me wrong? It's pitiful. Be a witness to my swan song, I'm a general. When we're gone, we're leaving everything to rubble. We're gonna watch you stumble through the fall. You'll find deliverance in the barrel when we're playing cards. Wake up, wake up. What the fuck? I'm trying to wake the masses.
With your vocal cord, shake your minds with your every word. Remove the sheath from your lyrical sword. Why know your tongue not suited for the war? Break the masses with your vocal cord, shake your minds with your every word. Remove the sheath from your lyrical sword. Why know your tongue not suited for the war?
Nothing in your world works the way you think it does. There's a far higher, bigger picture going on the earth for at least 7,000 years of human history that we modern day people really just don't relate to.
Mind over matter, all I see is propaganda. The snakes and ladders up on every channel. Lights, camera, action, what's the latest fashion? Welcome to the ghost of Saturn. Do you really know what's happening? When you watch the news, do you see the patterns? No, it's not hard to fathom. This shit is far from random. I see the puppet battling on man, sifting through the rubbish like that's a strong man. Words of garbage. Don't be unique and build some courage. And do your best to make it flourish. Feed your soul the best foods to keep you nourished. Stay on it, find your strength and solace and become a colossus.
Break the masses with your vocal cord, shake your minds with your every word. Remove the sheath from your lyrical sword. Why know your tongue not suited for the war? Break the masses with your vocal cord, shake your minds with your every word. Remove the sheath from your lyrical sword. Why know your tongue not suited for the war?
Man, I try so hard to learn the truth myself. When I learn something new, I wanna tell somebody else. Truth is in plain sight. If you look, can't you tell? You allow all these lies. That's why you created hell. Wake up now. Who are you? Are you self? Are you truth? Are you calves of a cow? Are you right? Where's the proof? Can you tell me what it is that they put in your food? These are questions that I ask cause I don't like being fooled. I'm not a rebel, but they're making me. I need truth for my sanity. Friends ask why can I let it be? Well, cause lies won't set me free. I am rooted like a walking tree. I think it's time for the better me. Express my thoughts by melodies. Least I can do is plant the seeds. Least I can do is plant the seeds.
Break the masses with your vocal cord, shake your minds with your every word. Remove the sheath from your lyrical sword. Why know your tongue not suited for the war? Break the masses with your vocal cord, shake your minds with your every word. Remove the sheath from your lyrical sword. Why know your tongue not suited for the war?
Governments do not operate the way you think they do. Banks do not do what you think they do.
Have a look, all our rights getting took. First a pandemic, now these riots got them hooked. Fuck the state, fuck the police, 33 times, yeah. Not the ones burning the streets, that's by design, yeah. Stacks of bricks planted randomly on certain corners. Order out of chaos, that's how they control us. They got us separated in every way, it's cold and soulless. Say that we're profane, fuck that we got game. Genius as they are, don't matter old and late. If this their new normal, let's make a whole new lane. The ones at the top of the most of the crime, the higher you go then the deeper the bind. They've done this before and I work every time. The world is a stage called the curtains and blinds. Tip at the beat, we can lift up the line.
With your vocal cord, shake your minds with your every word. Remove the sheath from your lyrical sword. Why know your tongue not suited for the war? Break the masses with your vocal cord, shake your minds
And because he is, in point of fact, Caesar, his official title is Pontifex Maximus. That was a term that was given to Caesar of Rome. So the point I'm making here is that for 3,200 years, Rome has dominated Europe. And for 3,200 years, Europe has dominated the world. Therefore, there is the old saying that all roads